Today's meeting is a special meeting of the Cambria Community Services District. We do have all 5 board members present. If you would all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If you would please double check that your electronic devices are silenced, turned off, or otherwise set so they will not disturb the meeting, that would be great. It would be really helpful, since we have a lot of folks here, if people would keep their voices to a low roar. If you want to talk with somebody, go ahead and take it outside so that we can continue the business of the board during the meeting. There are public comment slips out in the entryway. If you would like to make a comment, please fill it out and give it to Ms. Madrid. She's sitting right here on the end in a purple dress. And we're going to get started with the hearings and appeal. We don't have any closed session or anything to report, correct?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. General Manager Gruber.
Yes, Madam President.
I don't see future agenda items on this agenda. Would we need to do a majority of 4 vote if we were to add it? Because it was on the agenda at the last meeting, and this is a continuation.
What item are we talking about?
Future agenda items that we usually have at the end of the agenda.
Right, that's normally on our regular meeting agenda, but I don't know that we always put it on the special meeting agenda.
Okay, so could we do a vote? Could we have a motion and add it to the end of the regular agenda? Is that possible on a special meeting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. We'll anticipate that next time. We'll anticipate that.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to, thank you. Protocols. General Manager Gruber, would you like to introduce the first item?
Yes, Madam President, board members. Item 2A is hearings and appeals. The item is a public hearing to consider and adopt of Resolution 03-2018, calling a special election for a proposed special tax to fund firefighters and a related increase in the appropriations limit, and requesting consolidation with the June 5th, 2018 statewide election. With that introduction, Madam President, board members, I would like to turn it over to District Council Tim Carmel. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So we're here to consider Resolution 03-2018, and that's a resolution that's intended to put a special ballot measure, special tax, intended to fund 3 full-time firefighters on the June ballot. It does 2 other things. It increases our appropriations limit. When you pass a special tax, well, first of all, our appropriations limit was a function of Prop 4 from 1979. It was first established in 1980. Every year it's adjusted based on changes in the consumer price index and population growth. When you pass, it's actually the amount of tax proceeds that you can expend in any one year. That's what it actually is. So when you pass a special tax, typically under the Constitution, you have to raise the appropriations limit to account for that additional fund. So that's the second thing that this resolution does. And the third is it requests that the county consolidate our special election with the statewide direct primary election on June 5th. That's the function of the resolution. The proposed tax itself is a $50 tax per parcel. It's intended to raise approximately $300,000 in revenue. And again, it can be used solely to fund 3 full-time firefighters. That's the plain wording of the measure. The actual wording of the exact question on the ballot will be, shall Cambria Community Services District Ordinance 01-2018, which imposes an annual special tax of $50 on each parcel of real property in the Cambria Community Services District to fund 3 full-time firefighters, be approved, and shall the Cambria Community Services District appropriations limit be increased by the amount of this voter-improved tax. So that's the guts of what we're here to consider today. The the text, the plain text of the whole measure is ordinance attached. It's actually Exhibit A of the resolution. It's an ordinance of the people that we're asking the people to pass, and that'll be in the ballot book itself. Let me take a moment and just go through the material provisions of the ordinance. It goes through the authority, which is the California Constitution, Article 13A, B, and C, and a couple of other sections of the Elections Code. It contains a fiscal impact section. Let me read that. The rate of tax to be levied, $50 per parcel located in the Cambria Community Service District. The tax will also be subject to annual CPI adjustments. The amount of money to be raised is $300,000. That's the best estimate we can make right now. The duration of the tax, the authorization to levy the tax pursuant to this ordinance does not expire. It's a perpetual tax. It doesn't sunset. Section 3, the tax imposed and the purpose of the tax. A special tax for the purpose of funding 3 full-time firefighters should be imposed on all parcels of real property in the Cambria Community Services District for each fiscal year, commencing with fiscal year 2018-2019. The maximum amount of the special tax for fiscal year 2018-19 shall be $50 per parcel. It's adjusted every year pursuant to changes in the CPI indexes for San Francisco and Los Angeles averaged. There are certain exemptions, parcels owned by federal and state governmental agencies, parcel owned by local governmental agencies, and then other exempt parcels pursuant to state law and federal law. The ballot question, again, I just read, is also included in the plain text of the measure itself. Use of the tax proceeds. If approved by the voters, the special tax will be used solely for the purpose of funding 3 full-time firefighters within the district. Proceeds of this special tax will not be used for any other purpose and will not be used to offset other district obligations. The appropriations limit increase is in there. The method of calculation. The special tax imposed by this ballot measure is due from each owner of record of a parcel within the district as reflected upon the rolls of the county assessor. At the same time, ad valorem tax is due and is to be collected in the same manner. There are 2 accountability measures in Section 9. Account. Upon the levy and collection of the tax authorized by this ordinance, an account shall be created into which the proceeds of the tax will be deposited. The proceeds of the tax authorized by this ordinance shall be applied only to the specific purposes identified in this ordinance. Annual report. An annual report that complies with the requirements of Government Code Section 50075.3 shall be filed with the District Board of Directors no later than January 1st of each fiscal year in which the tax is levied. And the effective date, this ordinance does not become effective unless approved at the June 5th, 2018 election by 2/3 majority of the voting registered voters within the district. The ordinance shall become effective 10 days after the vote is certified by San Luis Obispo County. So that's the actual measure itself. A couple of other issues that we need to discuss. You'll notice in the county's schedule of election events that's attached to the staff report that there's a very short window to file an argument in support of the measure. The last date is February 28th. So essentially, if we were going to do that, it would have to be done at the February 22nd meeting. There's great flexibility in how we go about doing that. I'll just run through some of the things I've seen. You could appoint an ad hoc of 2. Obviously, there's a Brown Act issue. We can't all meet and form an argument in support. You can form a short ad hoc committee. It'd be very short. That can go about drafting this. Any one of you could volunteer to do it. There's other ways. You can ask others to actually draft it for you, but typically those would be the ways to do it. Of course, you can use any resource you want outside the scope of this room to assist in drafting that and proofreading it and bolstering it up. There are some pretty fine regulations dealing with measures. I have those with me and I'll hand them out later. 300-word maximum, and then there's some other rules that whoever's going to actually undertake the assignment will have to pay close attention to. A bigger issue that we really have to be cognizant of, everyone needs to have their eyes wide open, the use of district resources to advocate for a measure once it's on the ballot are strictly prohibited. And that's district funds, district staff, district equipment, district supplies. None of it can be used to advocate for this measure. And of course, you can all do so on your own time. You can use your own monies. But with respect to the district, it's very narrow as to what we can do once this is put out there and on the ballot. I can go over some of the do's and don'ts real quickly just so that you get a better idea. And again, I'll hand out some materials so that you all have a real good understanding of where the line is on this. The basic rule is that public resources may not be used for ballot measure campaign activities. Public resources may be used, however, in informational activities. So it may be used to place the measure on the ballot, to prepare an objective and fact-based analysis on the effect of the ballot measure on the agency and on those the agency serves. You can adopt a position on the measure as long as it's done in an open meeting where all voices have the opportunity to be heard. You can write and approve an argument in favor of the measure, and in that argument, all of you can sign it, one of you can sign it. Again, there's great flexibility. Those are sort of the guts. What you can't do, you can't engage in any campaign activities on agency time or using any agency resources. You can't use agency resources, including office equipment, supplies, staff time, vehicle, public funds, to engage in any advocacy-related activities, including producing campaign-type materials or performing campaign tasks. And you really just have to keep that in the back of your mind, because the natural tendency, particularly on a measure like this, is to embrace it and advocate for it. So with that, I'll turn it back to you to answer any questions. There you are.
So I'm just going to review kind of what you said the process was, and then I'll ask the board members if they have any questions, and then we'll take public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for our input and comment and discussion for a decision. So what my understanding is we would have to vote to approve this resolution today, which would then put a measure on the ballot, not automatically. We have to write argument for it and do those things required by the county clerk by the dates that are listed in here.
Right.
And then it would go on the June ballot, and the measure would raise $300,000 in the first year,
That's correct.
which would be next fiscal year starting July 1st.
Right.
Okay, and the election's June 5th, okay? And then it would increase each fiscal year after that
Based on CPI changes.
based on the CPI. So I have a few questions, but I'd like to start with other directors first. Director Wharton, questions?
If I remember from previous meetings, we'll be receiving these funds in about January,
Hopefully.
county dependent.
It's county dependent.
What are we doing in the, this is for General Manager Gruber, how are we going to adjust the budget to, if the measure passes and the voters voted in, what's the contingency to go from July through December until we receive those funds?
We really haven't discussed a contingency, but the only option that I would see would be a loan from the general fund for that 6-month period of time. My recommendation would be, if it did pass, to have a caveat that those funds would be paid back to the general fund over a period of time. So that's the only revenue source that I would see, because there is going to be a 6-month period of time, a lag time, where once we do receive the funding, if the measure passes, and then the reality of the budget process, if you will. So that's would be my recommendation regarding funding that period of time where there's not funds available.
Question, do you have any more questions? Vice President Berenger.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, quick ones. So as far as advocating for this particular using funds, and I noticed the fire department was at the farmer's market for a while. Once this is on the ballot is really when that would take place. So the advocacy would have to stop then, is that correct?
As soon as you adopt it, this resolution.
As soon as we adopt the resolution?
That's right, the advocacy stops.
Okay. Now, you were talking about having an advocacy, or having somebody write the endorsement for the measure. Wouldn't it be wise to have some members of the public involved in helping draft that, and maybe have just a ad hoc meeting somewhere where people could help draft the advocacy? And also, wouldn't it also be appropriate for the people opposed to be able to voice their, vet their rebuttal.
With regard to your first question, if you form an ad hoc, you have the ability to solicit any resources you want, non-district resources, but anyone you want to consult with, to get their input, to have them write sections of it, that's fine, and certainly that would be a benefit, including the chief when he's not on duty. The second part of it, those who oppose it have the right by law to submit their own arguments in opposition. That's really not a function of the district. So there's a process by which they would submit their arguments opposing the measure to the clerk, and there's a priority of who gets their measure on. Obviously, we're the number one priority for purposes of arguments supporting the measure, and then there's a priority with regard to arguments opposing the measure, but that process is in place, and anyone that wants to oppose it has that ability.
Director Pearson.
A little clarity. The people that oppose have the same date to get theirs filed as we do.
It's an interesting question, but if you look at the county's time schedule, yes, they do.
Okay. And then there's a rebuttal period also to our advocacy if we do an advocacy.
That's correct. That's pretty far down. I believe it's in the packet, but I think that's in March, in late March.
Director Farmer.
Since I'm the only one that hasn't made a comment yet, I already have some comments, observations, and suggestions, and I'm going to leave those until after I hear from public comment from the community.
I have a question. Will the 300,000 end up covering the full burdened cost of those 3 full-time firefighters, since it has to be restricted to those firefighters?
Yes, that figure was derived from working with the finance manager on what the cost of a firefighter fully burdened would be. The language in there that includes an escalator is for costs that might be incurred at a later time relating to those positions. So, yes, that wasn't a number that was just grabbed out of the air. It was a number that was previously determined by the last finance manager, Patrick O'Reilly, excuse me, and then confirmed by Rudy Hernandez, and then also working with Monique from the HR perspective on the fully burdened cost of a firefighter.
So one of my concerns and why I asked that question has to do with, I don't think that our firefighters, their annual increases, at least in the last contract that we had with the firefighter union, was CPI. I think it was higher than that for their increase. I'm just concerned about not raising enough revenue to cover the cost of the firefighters that we're proposing to add.
That's correct, and the terms and conditions associated with that IFF contract are up pretty soon.
Okay.
So that contract ends, I believe, in June.
Okay, I just had one other question, and then we'll get to the public's comments. I just want to clarify, right now, we have, when there's a call, we have 4 personnel that end up going to an event. Maybe this is where I need Chief Hollingsworth to answer the question. So if the tax were to not pass, if we don't get 2/3 vote, then what would happen is we would go to 3 people on the truck for an event, and one of them is a reserve. Am I understanding that correctly? So right now we have, because of the SAFER federal grant that we have 3 full-time firefighters and 1 reserve that go on each event. And so this is about putting and keeping that 3rd full-time firefighter.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, let's hear from the public, and we will start with Shelley Triggs. You'll each have 3 minutes, followed by Cardi. Carol Dean. Welcome.
Hello. In August of this last year, my son died in a surfing accident at the beach at Moonstone. And the paramedics and the fire department came and attempted to sustain his life. And he knew all of these folks because he was on the ENCORE team and was hoping possibly to become a firefighter or a paramedic, and they were going to sponsor him. And unfortunately, he did not survive, but what came out of that is an incredible, powerful experience of community support and unity, and I am so touched by all of you here on the board and also by all the folks behind me, and especially those who attempted to rescue him. Also, a month ago, that same team showed up at my father's house when he fell outside getting out of my car and broke his hip. And those folks did an amazing job. And one man, I overheard him speaking, I think his name's Steve, I can't remember his last name at present, but he said, remember, we're focusing on the individual, we're not focusing on the diagnosis. And so what this team offers is an awareness, a consciousness of who they're with on an emergency call. They're thinking about each one of us and what we need, and that is their value. And for me, I want to emphasize this that in the 21st century was kind of about cutbacks, and this century, I hope, is going to be more progressive and consider sustainability. So thank you for all that you've done to keep these guys around as long as you have. I really appreciate all of you and your good work, and I hope to keep these guys doing good work for all of my neighbors and community members and family. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Carol Dean, followed by Bob Putney. Welcome.
Thank you. Don't let the t-shirt fool you. I am retired. I've been in this community for well over 30 years. I spent 11 years as a volunteer firefighter, and I have seen many changes. We moved from that little tiny station up to the new big station up there, much better. I've seen a lot of growth. I've seen a lot of new stop signs and stoplights, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, but that's necessary for a community. And we are a community. We need to remember that. Our layout is not really safe if a fire should occur here. I mean, look what happened up there. Look what happened down there. Our fire department at this point, I think, would be vastly overwhelmed should anything of that nature occur here. I hope and pray it never does. I've been called out to fires. I've been called out to a lot of medical emergencies. I've responded to a lot of strange things occasionally. I had a lot of training. And I really think that we need to maintain, for the purpose of the 2 in and 2 out law in California, a full staff of firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I totally appreciate the support, folks. It just really helps things move more quickly. If you agree, go ahead and raise your hands, but if you just kind of keep it on the quiet side, it's helpful because not everybody may be here to be supportive. I suspect, Mr. Putney, that you are probably in the support column.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Directors, my name is Bob Putney. I'm a resident of Cambria and retired fire chief here in Cambria as well. I can't I echo the people who came in front of me and many who will come behind me that the department achieving 4 people on the engine staff 24/7 is really key to a successful initial attack on a structure, a wildland, or any other sort of fire. It's great to have 4 people on for a medical call. It's essential to have the 4 people on for an ocean rescue. But the previous speaker talked about 2 in and 2 out. It's important the public understand what that means. If the fire department has 3 people on an engine and there's a structure fire, there's not just a state law, there's a federal, if you will, safety requirement that says that you can't make entry without 2 firefighters going in and 2 being out, and that's for the safety of the firefighters and the public, should a firefighter become entrapped inside a structure and need rescue themselves. Now, they can go in with 3 people, but there has to be determined a very severe likelihood that someone is trapped inside. Without that, they have to wait. And waiting here can be a long distance. We used to get help from Hearst Castle Fire Department. They do not respond anymore off the hill. In fact, they have very low staffing at all. The next closest staffed fire departments are in Morro Bay and the CAL fire stations that are around us. This is an unusual year in that CAL Fire is still on wildland mission. So the engine here in Cambria, even though it's located here, is a brush fire engine. It's not set up for structural fires. It can do that, but it's not set up for it. And they could be in Montecito as they were when the mudslides occurred. This engine was in Montecito, initial help rescuing those people. So we have to depend on our fire department. I hope you will look at that. I hope the public sees the benefit that if somebody's trapped inside a residence, we want our firefighters to be safe, and we want to feel the safety ability that they can go in rapidly and get them out. Nobody in this room, I hope, thinks that our fire department can stop a catastrophic fire as happened in the Thomas Fire in Napa, where I initially started my career, or in Santa Rosa. That's not going to happen. But if they can get on it quick enough with enough people that are well trained, which our department is, they can make an effective stop. And those fires that are bigger, we're going to have to rely on our neighbors. But initially, we need to rely on a well-trained, well-staffed fire department. So I hope you will support allowing the voters to make a decision to put 4-person staffing on the ballot. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Todd Steeb, followed by Lance Nielsen. Todd Steeb, followed by Lance Nielsen. Welcome.
Been a little while since I've been up here, not in uniform. I spent a good part of my career as a deputy sheriff, the resident deputy here in Cambria, and followed Chief Putney on many a time up here. I've been on thousands of calls in my career here in Cambria. I went to junior high school here. I know the chief and I went to high school together. I've been on everything from ocean rescues to shootings to car accidents. You cannot ever have enough people on scene. And until the public understands that we are so vastly on our own, you shut down, we have nothing coming from the north right now with the slides. You shut down 46, you're not getting anything from Paso. So it just takes one. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And this is the only people behind you, standing right back there, because I don't do this anymore, that are going to be here to help you guys. You're going to have people that are going to come out, the CIT teams, things like that, but those are the first 4 and the first 8. Okay, when I started here, 1 ambulance, Dave Melendi, Don Melendi, Linda Melendi, and 1 volunteer ambulance. Now we have 2. It was 2 volunteer fire departments. Captain Biddo, we had some volunteers up there. I joined when I was right out of high school, and now we're up to where we are now. And anything that goes from where we are now is a step back. As a deputy, I was a resident deputy here, and they would call me out at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was the only law enforcement officer up in this area, and backup could never get here fast enough, and I relied on these guys and these women to back me up, and I did the same for them. So anything less than giving them what they need is going to be a liability on the district and a liability on the community. And not just for us, but we have hotels here. We have one of the biggest ones in the county with the lodge, and it's had a couple of incidents that it is burned down. You can't rely on other agencies. They're going to be there. It's going to take them a while to get here. They've got to get their crews ready and get up here. But without the 4 people that stand there on your medical emergency, or if you have to split those crews and put them on 2 engines because we have 3 or 4 calls at the same time. So I highly recommend you guys put this on the ballot and let us vote on it and let the community make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your folks. Please, thank you for your comments. Lance Nielsen, followed by Bill Castellanos.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Lance Nielsen. I'm a new resident of Cambria, and I had a fright recently when I went to insure the property I just purchased and having great difficulty getting fire insurance. And as you're probably aware, it's difficult to get fire insurance in the state of California in general, but Cambria in specific. And so I really have questions to pose. I'm not sure how you can answer those during this period. But the first one is, what happened to the funds that were previously used to maintain the level of staffing that we had and that we need to maintain public safety for all of us? So that's the first thing. What happened to the money that used to pay for them? Secondly, will there be any lapse in firefighter coverage, and how is that going to impact our ability to maintain our fire insurance? Because not only are we at a public health and public safety risk, we could be at a huge financial risk as well. So if you could provide answers to those, I would be much easier to vote for additional funds to maintain the services we need. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, and we'll get you some answers when we finish with the public comment. I think they're important. Anybody else that has questions that need to be answered before we actually determine what to vote on? If this goes on to the ballot, we definitely want to make sure the information's out there, so we'll get those questions answered. Bill Castellanos, followed by Sonia Lanzen Castellanos. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Castellanos, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a longtime resident of Cambria. I've been here since 1975. Had built our first home in 1974. So I guess I'm considered one of the old timers now. But basically, I'm here to support the fire department and recommending to keep the current firefighters ratio that we currently have right now. I'm well aware that I know that this group had the CSD did receive a special 2-year grant, and usually being involved with the federal government and receiving grants, they usually have a lot of contingencies in which they give you the money with the other understanding that this funds should be used as a way of maybe starting a program. This is basically seed money to get something started with the understanding that you're hoping that there will be something that the community will then sustain this particular project. And I'm hoping that this was going to happen. One of my questions is that do we have to have a special election for this to happen? I know that it was brought up to the board of directors here, the old board, and they voted in favor of going forward with it. So I don't know what happened at this point, but we seem to be in a state of rescinding things that were approved from previous administrations. So I don't know if that seems to be the trend here. And also right now with this California, we had so many fires. We had the Vineyard fired up in Northern California, the Thomas fire. We had the Whittier fire. We also had a recent fire here in Cambria, the bridge, I guess they call it the Bridge Street fire, which happened during the summer. And that was pretty scary, especially when you receive a call. I was out of the country and I received a call at 2 o'clock in the morning to evacuate. So I really would consider that if the citizen, to be safe, to be a citizen of Cambria, we want to make sure that the community is safe at all times. And again, I really recommend that that we considered maybe looking at the possibility, do we have to go through the expense of having a special election, or can it be something that the board can vote today and not have this cost? I'm glad that we talked about your question about having a contingency plan when this passes, because I know it's going to pass, that we make sure, can we do the same thing to make sure that the firefighters that we currently have continue serving our community and not have this interruption of services. Because again, if this happens during the time of summer, it would be the time where it's going to be drier, there's going to be more tourists, and the possibility of having a fire becomes greater. So I really want to thank you for this time and this opportunity for me to say my words as a long-term resident of Cambria. I really appreciate this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Sonia Lanzen Castellanos. followed by Elaine Mermelstein. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Lanzan Castellanos, and like Bill, my husband, we've been here for 43 years, raised all our 4 children here. And I'm here to request that the board reconsider this last vote that was to discontinue the firefighters. I want very much to stand in support of the firefighters and that they are safe, as well as their efforts and levels in order to keep our community safe. So I appreciate your every consideration and all the effort. I know that you're focused on health and safety first, and then I also know that you get a lot of requests from the community to do a lot of fun things, which are great. But sometimes we might need to look at the allocation of funds so that we keep in mind health and safety first. So just to reiterate some of the points that you already know, but California remains in the worst fire conditions in recorded history, and it doesn't make sense to lessen our standards at this point. Number 2, Cambria is remote, as others have said. There's a long distance. It takes time to get to other resources, and it means that we need to be better prepared ourselves rather than depend on those outside resources. We also have a greater senior population with increasing medical response needs. We live in a tinderbox, and so we're ready to explode at the first opportunity with those sparks or anything. The special grant was awarded for extra firefighters, and that was made available due to the current severe conditions. I believe, if I'm right, to give communities that boost of support and time to create their own ability to fund the essential positions to meet current nationally determined safety standards of 4 firefighters at a time on a call. Most grants, as my husband said, are allocated with the stipulation and understanding that you have that commitment to continue it, and so we're looking to you to figure out that we will be continuing that. Not following that intent is an integrity issue. But more important, it's the safety issue that we want to keep our focus on. Planning to staff less than the standard of 4 can no longer be even the possibility. So really, you're looking at the safety of the crews that you're sending in there to do all this dangerous work. I'm hoping, because I know that you are really trying to do a good job and you're really trying to stay focused on health and safety and all the areas that Cambria needs. But I have a question and a request, and that is regarding the ballot issue. And it relates to the fact that if we did need more funds, I'd be so willing to support that, and I'm sure the community would too. But here's the question. So let me just say the question quickly. That should the ballot fail, we're still needing to have 4 firefighters. And so we'd still need to make a plan in the budget for those 4 firefighters. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I've got your question down here. Next up, Elaine Mermelstein. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the names correctly. Followed by Lisa Tansman.
It's Mermelstein. It was close
Mermelstein.
enough. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a resident here for 20 years. I'm also a commercial property owner here, so obviously I'm very much in favor of as many firefighters full-time as we need, not just for properties that I own, but our community at large. And as everybody has said before me, having enough firefighters to go into a building, the 2 and 2, and, we live in a drought. We're back in a drought. We were never, I guess, fully out of the drought. Dead trees. It's, it's just a very dangerous, it's a beautiful place we live, but we are isolated, and we have to look to ourselves to take care of anything that happens. And I hope it's on the ballot. I can't imagine that it would not be voted for, but at least to give the opportunity for people to voice their opinion on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Lisa Tansman, folks, please. It just makes it a lot easier. I know folks are supportive. I really appreciate that, and I know you are. Thank you. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, my name's Lisa Tansman. I'm a resident of Cambria. I'm a commercial real estate owner here. I'm a landlord. I think it would be grossly negligent of the board and the CCSD if we didn't have at least 4 full-time firefighters based on what former fire chief just said. If it needs to go to a vote, something that's put on the docket, I think that we should increase the amount of money. Instead of it being $50 per property owner, at least $65 per property owner, so we can have the 4 full-time firefighters. Any volunteers are great. If it needs to be more than $65, so then it needs to be. But I think that it's our collective responsibility as a community, and we hold the board and the CCSD to even higher standards because we've elected you guys to take care of us as a community. So I strongly encourage the board, because I'm assuming you guys are the ones that decide how this goes forward, to consider a minimum of 4 full-time firefighters and whatever we need to do as a community to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. David Mannion, followed by Mark Merrifield. Thank you, folks. I appreciate you're getting the hang of it. Welcome.
Hello, I'm David Mannion. I've lived here for 20 years. And I had a stroke about 3 years ago. The firefighters were there like that. Took very good care of me. And then I had 2 relapses after that, and they were very responsive. I can't say enough about how they acted and how they took care of me. And then I have to say, I'm a renter. I'm not fortunate enough to have enough money to have a house, which I would love to do. But the thing is that where I rent, I could be out of there just loaded up in my car and I'm gone. I don't have to worry about trees falling on me or anything like that. But most of my friends live in the forest. The people I love live in the forest. And they're on steep grades, so if something starts here, it's going to go up. And it's going to go fast. So I think we ought to search ourselves closer and deeper to find a more applicable way of financing the fire department here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mark Merrifield, followed by Nancy Merrifield. Apologize.
Hi, my name is Mark Merrifield. I've lived here for 37 years. It's a wonderful place to live. I have a lot of friends who are firefighters. Recently had the group to my house, and they responded very quickly. I would really hope that everybody that you put this on the ballot, that we get the choice to vote for this. I agree that we need to raise the money to do this. We need to have more firefighters. This place will go up in a heartbeat, and we just can't do it. I've lived here a long, long time. Really don't want to see that happen. I thank you all for all your hard work, and thanks so much.
Thank you for your comments. So you just want to have your written comments, okay? Emily Torlano is my last request to speak, so if you would like to make a comment, please fill out a slip and give it to Ms. Madrid. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. First, before I go into this, I'm here on behalf of the IAFF Local Employee Group, Cambria's professional firefighters. I did want to make a correction to Vice President Behringer when he spoke of our firefighters being at the farmers market. We have been perusing the town. We have been attending the farmers market. That was our union group, off duty on our own time. The truck that you see out there, the 33 Dodge, it is not CCSD property. It belongs to the employee group. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew we weren't doing this on duty. So once again, my name is Emily Torlano. I'm speaking on behalf of the IAFF Local 4635. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. We're here in support of either voting immediately to fund the Safer Firefighters or putting the measure on the ballot in June. Funding these positions is critical to the safety of our community and our firefighters. It is imperative to follow the recommendations from the 2016 Grand Jury Report, the Multi-Jurisdiction Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, the San Luis Obispo County Emergency Response Plan, and the San Luis Obispo County Fire Chiefs Association, all of which strongly recommend at a minimum maintaining current staffing levels for adequate public safety in Cambria. Our local has been hard at work reaching out to the public to give them a voice in the decision and have had an overwhelming response from our community. We have obtained signatures. I have lots of signatures right here from members of the community that are at work and are unable to attend here, and I can present those to you at the end of the meeting. And as well, I've had overwhelming email and social media openly in support of this decision. We, the IAFF Local 4635, strongly urge the board to vote immediately to permanently fund these positions or place a measure for funding on the ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Bob Casper, followed by John Newfield. Welcome.
Thanks. My name's Bob Casper, and I can't imagine why you guys wouldn't put this on the ballot. It's a total lose situation if you don't, and we pay for it if we want to, if you do. So, but if you look at this with a realtor's hat on, it's an unfair tax for some people in that there's a guy over on Lodge Hill, Tom Tierney, who's been here like 50 years. He started the Cambria Rotary Club, and he's purchased 11 little 25-footers over time. He has 11 parcels, okay? So he would pay $550, where some person up in Lemert on an acre pays $50. He's got less than a quarter of an acre cobbled together in a weird shape, and so you see what I mean. So something like that might want to be addressed so that he doesn't pay unfairly compared to everybody else. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. John Newfield, followed by Don Howell. Welcome.
My name is John Neufeld, and I'd like to know what provisions will be made between March and June when the election, if I understand. We would not have 4 firemen on the truck during that period of time. And if not, I think we can't be without them. I don't think it's a serious question whether we need to have 4 firefighters or 3 firefighters. The only other one would be 5 or 6 or 10, because these guys are the best guys in the world, in my opinion. And we need to have them. And we need never to be without them, even though these two months. And there must be enough money, I hope, in the CCSD coffer to take care of it during that time, because we should not be without it for one moment in this town. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and we'll get to that answer to that question before we're done here. Don Howell, please, your turn.
Thank you, Don Howell. For those who don't know me, I've lived here a little more than 20 years, I think. This is more in the nature of a question. We're talking about 6,000 parcels, as I recall, at $50 each. But what's unclear to me is what happens to those parcels that are removed that go into the to which the CCSD takes title as a result, say, of the build-out reduction program, should that ever be implemented. So if the build-out reduction program were successful, a good significant number of parcels would be in the owned by the CCSD, which, am I mistaken, does the CCSD pay tax on its parcels? So those would be removed. So it might be well to reconsider the amount that y'all are asking for, in view of the fact that, assuming that this drought ever does end, that you're going to have less parcels to tax. The only other thing I would like to say, personally, I'm in favor of the project. No one wants to be without firefighters, and certainly we have very heroic people here. But I'm wondering about the lot owners who do not live here and who may or may not ever be able to build. If the trees on their lot burn, all they have is a bunch of burnt out trees on their lot. If my house burns, my house is gone. So in a way, the absentee property owner might be looking to say, why am I paying for Don's fire protection? So I just wanted to raise that issue because I do foresee two-thirds vote is a hard majority to get. And so we want to be sure that all the bases are covered and all objections are met. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. But again, obviously, how could one not be in favor of doing this? Those of us who live here, I'm sure, would agree with me on that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for your important points you made. I've got 2 more requests. If you would like to get a request in, please get it in now so that we can move on. Jerry McKinnon, followed by Laurel Stewart. Welcome, Mr. McKinnon.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wish I could find a fire insurance policy for $65 a year. Thank you.
Okay, I would be clapping too, but please, let's keep it down. Just for the 15 seconds alone. Laurel Stewart, please.
Laurel Stewart, yeah. Given that the local agency, CCSD, would not be, of course, expected to pay this fee, how many parcels are there owned by CCSD? How many properties are owned? Thank you.
We'll get an answer for that question. I just want to make sure that we've got number of parcels. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak right now? Otherwise, I'm going to bring it back to the board for discussion and decision.
Just briefly,
Vice President Berenger.
Just briefly, I'd like to mention the fact that we've had one Fire Chiefs Association of San Luis Obispo County gave a letter to each of the board members, highly recommending the continuation of 4 firefighters, and just two quick things. They mentioned that across the United States, fire departments have experienced a decline in volunteer and reserve firefighter ranks since the 1980s, and that was brought out in the presentation that the chief gave last time. And the National Institute of Standards and Technology conducted a study in April of 2010, which focused on the capabilities of 4 versus 3 person engine companies. Many factors were included in the study, but the findings clearly identified the efficiency of a 4-person full-time company, and it goes on. And we also got a letter from Jerry Wood, who wasn't representing any particular area, but he strongly supported the CCSD Fire Department and its efforts to maintain having 4 firefighters on the engines for all shifts.
All right, I bring it. Now I'll have it back to the board for comments. I do want to answer a couple of the questions that were raised. There will be no interruption of service. At the last meeting, the board did give direction to staff that we would be funding through the end of this fiscal year, and if necessary, through December at least, when we will receive the first benefits, because we won't receive the tax monies if it passes until next probably January-ish. So we will have to find the money in the general fund of money we already have. So there will not be a gap in service. We're not going back down. The other clarification I'd like to make is that it's not 4 full-time firefighters. This would make it 3 full-time firefighters. It means that we could put 3 full-time firefighters and then we add a reserve when there's a call. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Hollingsworth. To have 4 full-time firefighters would cost and would essentially double the cost. So we rely on the 3 full-time firefighters right now from a grant that we received from the federal government.
That is correct, Madam President. Currently, before the SAFER grant came in, through the various presentations I've already done, we have maintained what we refer to as 3-0 staffing at all times. Of that 3-person staffing, 2 of them are career personnel, and one of them is reserve. We never drop down to 2 because there's only 2 career and 1 reserve. It's always 3. With the addition of the SAFER grant the last year and a half, we've maintained a continuous staffing level of 4 at all times. Now, 3 of those positions would be career positions, and that's what we're hoping to vote on today to encumber the district secondary to that public vote. And moving forward, we would have 3 career positions and that 4th position still being filled with a reserve firefighter. That is still successful right now. But through all of the presentations I've made, through all the documents you guys have seen, the death and volunteerism across the United States, the increasing training requirements, it is absolutely within the horizon to understand that in a relatively near future, we're probably going to have to be addressing transitioning to a full 4-person career department. Now, that may be 5, 10, 15 years down the road, depending on how viable our existing program continues. some of the people brought up the possibility of actually increasing the amount of money for this to actually encumber and actually bring on 4 career personnel, and then the volunteer concept or the reserve concept would in theory go away. That's a public decision that you guys collectively would have to make, and that's not what we're actually presenting right now. It's just to take the 3 existing safer personnel to bring, with that vote, the additional monies in to pay for those positions in its entirety, and we will continue to then bring a level of 4-person service to the community at all times, 3 of those being career and 1 being a reserve.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Captain Torlano for applying and getting that grant for the district, because it means that we were able to do that sooner rather than later. Mr. Carmel, there were a couple questions about why do we have to put this on the ballot? Can't we just make the decision to do it? And we could, but I don't think that we have the funding to do that. If the public were to go out and do a petition drive, they could get something put onto the ballot, but it's a much more expedient process if the board decides to put something on the ballot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if we were to vote no today as a board, which I don't know what we are all going to decide to do, but the public could do a petition drive and put it on the ballot, yes?
Right. The initiative process is always available for the public to do the same basic thing that we're doing now at any price they wanted.
Okay. And the number of parcels and the open space lots, I remember you said, Mr. Carmel, that owned by local agencies doesn't pay the tax. So do we know how many lots that removes from the?
I think the general manager has that figure.
Thank you.
We own 193 lots, and one of the questions was addressing the inequity between an individual who owns small lots, and the reference was they own 6, or quite a few, so there would be an inequity there. Unfortunately, this ballot measure does not address those inequities. When you have a parcel tax, it's divided amongst the property owners, and this ballot measure includes developed and undeveloped. So to answer that question, 193 parcels that we own, and with regard to the build-out reduction program, since that really isn't a policy that's been adopted yet by the board, there hasn't been any decisions, I think it would be premature to comment on it because I don't know the impact that it would have on this overall process. If and when that time comes, when lots are starting to be retired and the policy is adopted by the board, the build-out reduction program, then that's something at that time we're going to have to address. But to speculate right now probably wouldn't be in everybody's best interest. So.
And who votes on this? Is it registered voters, property owners? Who are the people that would be voting on this?
Registered voters.
Registered voters. So those people who own properties but don't live here, and so they can't be registered to vote here, wouldn't be able to vote on it, but then they would be taxed.
That's correct. It's not a perfect process.
No, of course, there isn't a perfect process, but there's a process in place, part of the California Constitution, that the public has a right to vote on taxes that are going to be imposed on them. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that. Vice President Berenger?
I'm very interested in hearing what Director Farmer his comments are, but I think that I hate to throw a wrench in this thing, but on page 2, underneath the box, if you put that a special tax in the amount of, it says $50 per parcel. If we said per improved parcel, we'd do 2 things. And well, first of all, it would change the equation, and you'd have to raise the money. But a lot of those unimproved parcels are going to be retired, and we'll get a declining amount of revenue. Could we apply, this is a question for legal counsel, could we just say improved parcels, do the calculus and change it to 75 if in fact that's what it is, and it would be more fair. And I also think if in doing so, we would increase the possibility of it being approved, because there are some people that have parcels here that vote here too. And unimproved parcels that vote here. So they would be more inclined to vote yes.
Legally, you do have the ability to make a distinction between improved and unimproved parcels, if that's where you wanted to go. In terms of doing the analysis right here and now, I don't know that we have the ability to do that at this meeting. So if that's the direction that the board wants to go, I'd probably suggest that we continue this to another meeting, then we can have Rudy actually do the calculations. I think we're talking in very rough numbers at this point in time, and we'd need to do that with some precision. So that's certainly available, but I'm not sure it can be done right now.
Vice President?
No, it could be, we could approve it. We could just leave the number out. And then when we put it to the ballot, we have another meeting and say, well, the number is now $78 or something. I don't think it takes rocket science to do a quick, I mean, yeah, I say give it a week to do it, but I don't want to delay a vote on whether we put this on the ballot or not.
Well, what we're doing today is what's going to go on the ballot, so it has to be very specific. We can't just leave blanks. Once this is adopted, we ship it off to the county immediately, and they start their own process.
And the 23rd, though, we have another meeting on the 23rd, so for us to approve a number then would be...
Well, I think you'd be cramming it pretty close.
Okay.
Remember, we still have to do the letter of support, the argument in support. There's a number, we have a 10-day hearing requirement as well, because there'll be new information provided to the public. I mean, it sounds easy, but we're in such a time crunch at this point in time. I think it would be smart to probably continue it to some other day, maybe later this week, and then get the pencils out and race pretty hard to get the figures.
It's a gross inequity, it really is.
Well, this issue came up last meeting, and we talked about the fact that you could impose it on improved and unimproved, and no one really bid on the issue, and it just died.
I think also I heard you say that the number is estimated, so how, like, what's the range of estimation if this needs to be close to exact? If this 300,000 and the $50 per parcel turns out when we do the calculations of the number of parcels that it's not going to raise the 300,000,
that's why there's...
how vague is it, is kind of my question.
Well, you'll have to ask Rudy. I think it's pretty close.
Okay.
But it's clear in there we're making an estimate. It's
Okay.
based on our best information available.
So we could be underfunding and we could be overfunding. It just kind of, we don't know at this point because
That's right.
we've done a quick turnaround. Director Pearson?
Rudy did a pretty good analysis, and he had a high and a low in this 300,000. It was a good analysis, so we know that number is pretty good. But if we're going to change the parcels, then we're in trouble. Another question is, how do we merge parcels? Can't we take lots, merge them, like person with 6 and merge them and end up only with 1 tax instead of 6?
Yes, the general manager and I talked about that if there's a concern and they're adjacent parcels, one way to do it is, it's in everyone's best interest in the district as well, is to merge those parcels into one and you'll pay 1 tax.
Which reduces the number of parcels, and I think it's district policy to be reducing the number of potential parcels that can be built on, and we're helping subsidize some of those lot mergers.
But
right?
every time you do that, you're going to reduce that $50.
Right,
Now, all of a
that's what I'm
sudden, you're
saying
gonna
with the number.
the
All of a
numbers
sudden you
won't
have,
work.
you don't have 6,000 parcels to tax anymore. You have like 4,000.
Right. These are the issues that we'll have to face through the years, but we were addressing a comment that a member of the public made. What would we do if we wanted to reduce the number into something more palatable, and that's how we do it. And I think the district would actually pay for that under their voluntary merger program.
All right. Director Farmer?
Before I make my comments, I don't know why Vice President Behringer singled me out as being interested in my opinions. I mean, thank you. Thank you, Vice President Behringer. I'm flattered. But before I make my statement here, I've lived in this community for a little over 31 years now. And where I live at this present time, I've lived there for it'll be 25 years in May. And I live in a very wooded area across the street from Strawberry Canyon. So I know how anxious people can feel in this community being threatened by fire. Since I've lived in my residence where I am now, there have been 2 fires in Strawberry Canyon. one within 500 feet of where I lived, and one just up the hill. And it was just with the good fortune that in the first instance, the one very close to my home, that a neighbor of mine happened to be running by, doing, more Sunday morning jog, and happened to see this fire that apparently had been started by a discarded cigarette. And then there was another fire, like I say, right up the hill on 4th of July weekend that was started by some teenagers from the high school. And it was just our good fortune that there was a vacation rental there and people were up for the weekend. Somebody was standing out on the deck and they saw this fire start. So like I say, it was someone was watching out for the community and catching those fires almost immediately. With regard to the situation as how we approach this particular issue, Vice President Behringer suggested earlier an ad hoc committee. I think it's really important for the community to have a total understanding as to, how could we say this, the fire agencies that are available to us. And I feel that it would be really cool to have, like I say, not just a standing committee to gather more information, but also to have a town hall meeting that includes not just the representatives from our very fine fire department, but also from CAL FIRE, maybe from somebody from San Luis Obispo County, to let us all know what would happen, what would be available if something took place in this community of let's say, a vast challenge to the firefighting crew. So I would suggest between now and the time that the community vote, and by the way, I also want to mention, all of the folks out here in our community that are attending today, and their comments, their opinions, their observations, I think this is one of the reasons we love living in Cambria. People are here, they're concerned, they're passionate, and everybody's observation, including Jerry McKinnon's 11 words, were well thought out and well-meaning and well-intentioned. And all of us up here appreciate that. That's why we serve this town. But I really feel that there should be some type of, ultimately, a town hall meeting, like I say, where we have representatives from various fire agencies, where all of us in this community can get how can I say it, a greater grasp on what is available to us at any time of challenge or crisis. And I would also want to suggest, because I usually at every monthly meeting bring up the financial challenges that continue to face this district, that we have a real understanding of what's on the horizon for us financially if this ballot measure passes. So those are my comments. Thank you.
I'm just going to review how we got here to this point, which is at the last meeting, we did have to make a decision that we would, because the SAFER grant runs out in March, so we had to make a decision that we would fund those positions through the end of the fiscal year, which was not a small amount of money, but we wanted to do because we wanted to at least make it to the point where we could have the vote. Because I definitely think that it's important, whether it's voting on a tax or voting to support having the third full-time firefighter, career firefighter, I think that the town's really the best to decide whether they want to do that or not. This has had to be a rather quick turnaround. We were kind of busy last year, so we didn't unfortunately get to this as soon as we would have liked to. We also made a decision at the last meeting that we would fund these positions if the measure passes all the way through when we start to get the taxes. And based on the last couple of years when we've used general fund monies to help cover emergency repairs and other things that are needed in the utilities, water and wastewater, I don't know if we have enough cushion, and I'm hoping that we do, because the board did give direction that that's what we need to do, and that means that there may be some things that are currently being funded out of general fund, which I would like to say water and wastewater should not be funded out of general fund, but right now we are underfunded from the rates for those two things to cover all of our costs. I think it's important to note that it was not easy decision because of, like Director Farmer said, the financial challenges in all the departments, and we've got a lot of obligations. I'm very glad to see how clear this is about what it'll fund. I'm a little concerned about how many parcels will be taxed, and that it's kind of a fixed amount that CPI may not keep up with the raises that are negotiated with the union, which means that we will start fighting a losing battle on that front. Now, those are all complicated things that don't affect at all whether or not people should be able to vote on doing this. But it does affect going forward, especially if it's in perpetuity, how we actually make sure that we have money in the bank to cover those positions, because when it comes right down to it, there's 3 human beings in positions right now that would like to keep their jobs, and I'm assuming they're just as good as the rest of the folks we have on the fire department, and so we don't want to lose them. It was a windfall to get the SAFER grant, and I want to make sure that that we are respectful of the people who are in those positions, as well as the services that are provided by the fire department, by those people and the rest of the career firefighters. I hope when it comes to we need to add staff for the collection system, when we have to add staff to the water department because it's understaffed, we get this kind of turnout. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? I think it would. I'm so glad that for all the support for the fire department, but we're understaffed kind of almost everywhere. So when we get to the rates for water and wastewater, don't be surprised that we're going to have some increases, and we need more personnel there too. So I think we are at a point where Director Pearson has a comment.
Just a couple of things. One of the things I did over the last couple of days is due diligence as I looked back at the budget this year and tried to figure out if we could come up with some of this money. But unfortunately, of course, the budget is very tight and et cetera, and was drawn up well. One of the things I did notice is that the allocation of the administrative department is probably higher for the fire department than it should be, okay, based upon the support that they get, the amount of people that help them out, et cetera, et cetera. So there's possibility of some savings there, but looking at it, it was not close to the $300,000 certainly that we need. And we would again have to pay Rob Peter to pay Paul, and hopefully we will rectify that situation with the raise in rates that are coming up probably in the next several months. The other thing that I did real quickly is I said, okay, if we do go to just improved properties, I'm assuming that an improved property has a meter, so we have about 3,700 meters, so if you divide that into the $300,000, you get about $80. So we'd have to go to probably $80, $85 if we wanted to change the wording to just improved. So that's where we stand on that.
Vice President Behringer.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that's the analysis that would be best served for the community. Like what one of the people in the audience did say that, hey, you know, a guy's got trees on it. Why would he vote for it? And a person has a house, and when you have 4 firefighters out there, 2 can come in, 2 can come out, but I think you get more votes for it if you just said improved properties. I think the calculus is pretty easy, 4,000 or nearly 4,000. It wouldn't decrease over time if, in fact, people did, in fact, it would increase over time because now somebody would develop a property, and all of a sudden you're going to get $80 from that person that you didn't get in the past. So the logic is very clear. I think in the packet, and by the way, I didn't get this packet, and, you know, the packet came recently. Our last meeting was pretty recent, so we didn't have enough chance last time to discuss it. Apparently, we have to have this in by the February 21st. We have a 10-day notice period, but we could meet on Monday the 19th if we noticed it tomorrow, and we'd have 2 options, and we can make a vote on the 2 options. That would be the approach I'd like to move forward with, and I think would be a better product.
So let me see if I understand. So you're saying that we would go back and look at the numbers, but still we could vote to put it on the ballot pending a more specific analysis on the numbers, if that's legally possible. It looks like they're looking at the schedule and calendar. Is that something we could do?
It's very tight, and there's about a 4-day interval between submitting the notice requirements and having them actually published. So that would be a problem. But it's something we may be able to achieve. I mean, I just don't want to botch the whole thing up.
But can we vote to put it on the ballot pending an amendment on of the wording on the 19th? And all we're going to do is add one word and change a number.
Later this week or something?
Or even later this week.
It's far more, I mean, I'm not overdoing it. It's far more complicated than that. We probably could, if that's the direction the board wants to go.
So do we have to wait 10 days again to have another hearing, or can we meet on Friday and do the whole thing?
We'd continue, I was just looking at the notice, we would continue this hearing to a date specific, and then I don't know that we would have to renotice it. We didn't put the specifics in the notice, just the overall concepts.
Okay.
So I think it's, knock on wood, because I know it's a very involved process.
How much time do you need to feel comfortable answering that question more solidly?
I'd like to get back to my office and have all my books and things available to do it. But again, I think conceptually it can be done. You're just really talking about changing who's going to have the tax imposed, only improved property owners, so I'm getting the gist of it. We'd have to have Rudy do a more involved analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And then redo the resolution and redo the ordinance, and we'd still have time to submit it to the county. So if that's the direction you wanted to go, I would basically say, let's continue this to a date certain, come back with
that direction given to staff?
Can we do it Friday? Date certain Friday?
Yeah, well, we'd have to check with everybody.
Right.
No. No, okay.
I'm seeing a no. We've had the public comment already. I want to, we need to.
I think we'd want to get some consensus from the rest of the board.
I don't understand why, if you can own property, you're not also responsible for that property. If your tree goes up and my house goes down, you're responsible in part for that, so it should be your responsibility, actually, even if you don't live there, to protect all the parcels around you.
So and not being on the mic, I'm sure that folks couldn't hear it on the recording, but the point was being made of not charging the unimproved parcels, even though the unimproved parcels are forested lots probably also that create a fire hazard theoretically. I know that when we do the lot clearing, we don't include the improved parcels, which then makes kind of a difference, but we do include the, I don't know, there's a, Director Wharton.
I'm just seeing this as being paralysis by analysis right now. We got the resolution. Clearly, I haven't heard one person in the audience speak against this. Clearly, they want to pay for some protection. They want to be safe. In listening to what District Council Carmel was saying, are we going to wait to the last minute and then we have to have this perfectly set? And if we don't, what happens then? Then we lose that ability to go to a ballot. And then is it on us to come up with $300,000 for this and possibly wreck the budget?
Or
paralysis by analysis. I think we just need to, and this goes to Director Pearson and I, we sat with Chief Hollingsworth on last Monday, and my question to him was, why are we waiting this long? Why wait 3 more days? Why wait 4 more days? Let's go.
So one of the concerns that I have, because it does have to be specific, we do have a resolution in front of us, and having been on the board for 6 years and watched as every year we are underfunded in the water and wastewater, even when we have increased the water and wastewater rates, the further forward we go, the further behind we get, which is what would happen if we don't have this set in a way that makes it so that we can raise the money to cover the costs. And we don't have a lot of cushion remaining because of the costs that we've incurred in the utilities side, and the things that we'd like to do with the parks and open space that we have, and help fund the lot mergers, and there's a lot of other projects that are important. I think that it is incumbent upon the community to decide whether they want to tax themselves, but it's incumbent upon us to be fiscally responsible and make sure we're charging the amount that will help cover those costs. And that's my concern. And I think if we can I don't want to be paralysis analysis. That's not where, even though it rhymes and is pretty, don't want to go there. But I do want to make sure that we don't hand over a district once all of us are gone to some people who will then have to deal with the fact they don't have enough money to replace the fire engine that's now 10 years old. So, sir, we've already had public comment. I appreciate that, and if I
think of the concept of a management reserve, you're looking at the number, and then
yeah.
Just a quick suggestion: having a different arrangement for unimproved lots, have a lower amount, develop your budget.
So there would be, there's a lot of specifics involved, and that's another analysis thing. And
I agree with that.
Vice President Berenger?
Let me comment that the unimproved lots already are paying a fire assessment. I'm just saying they're paying a fire assessment the first times. They aren't going to be paying an increased one or there's a possibility of saying they don't have to pay an increased one. Director Pearson very clearly on a piece of paper said, well, now it's $85. And the flaw if we approve this without doing some other analysis, the flaw is the amount of money we're going to get if we're having both improved and unimproved lots. We're going to get less and less and less as the lots are retired, and this way we'd get more and more and more as the lot, if any lots do become developed. So it's a flaw in the analysis, and I'm convinced it would only take. We have 3,800 connections. I mean, it's that simple, and I think that it could be resolved quickly. That would be my suggestion. And yes, there is also the suggestion that you could have the unimproved lots less and the improved lots more. Now, all of a sudden, it's a paralysis by analysis, and I wouldn't recommend going in that direction. So that's my comment.
I just really want to make sure that what we have here is something that, because I think that people would support even $85. I think they would probably support even $110, really, when it comes right down to it. When you look at the not having it, clearly there's support for it. What I don't want to do is provide another sink where we've got not enough money to cover the costs of what the community would like to have as the services. If they want the services, let's let them pay for it, but let's make sure we're charging them the amount that's fair and correct. The other thing is, if we make it 85 and then we have more than enough to pay for those three because it's specific to the three firefighters, what happens to the extra money then? I mean, it's got to stay in that fund, so then it just starts building up and helps cover the raises. So it's just a consideration and a policy that would have to be developed once the measure is passed. We could develop that policy, right? Like we could develop a policy that said we should have at least one forester on the staff among the firefighters that are on our staff to help manage the forest. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do policy-wise if we were able to fund these positions. I don't want to underfund them. That's my concern.
The ballot language, as District Council Carmel read.
Can you speak up a little?
Yes, ma'am. The ballot measure and the resolution and what's before you is pretty ironclad. I mean, and the calculations are pretty ironclad. They talk about, what exactly the funding will go for, and the analysis of the 6,000 lots at $300,000 came up to that $50 amount. So I don't think there's going to be, whatever you guys decide to do, I don't think there's going to be problems about, well, what if we have too much, or what if we have too little, or I think if I could just kind of refocus, the item in front of you is to put this on the ballot or not put it on the ballot. With regards,
at the $50.
Yes, ma'am. With regards to other things in the future and other taxations, there'll be an opportunity to have that conversation. And I share your thoughts and your concerns relating to that. water, wastewater, those time. But this particular item is this particular item. And, the decision needs to be made.
We also briefly talked at the meeting about what would happen if we took a little extra time. You had suggested a citizens committee and then have it on the ballot in November, which there were things involved with that where there might be a gap in providing the service where it was 3 career firefighters in a reserve. And we decided we weren't going to go that direction. Is everybody still okay with not going in that direction of letting it till November? Okay.
Yeah,
I would take a motion if.
I'd like to move something.
I would like you to move something.
I move that we vote to put this item on the ballot and continue the item to a date certain to determine the amount and the lots that are going to be taxed. Can we do that?
So we need to be specific. Are you suggesting that we change it to improved and have analysis done so that it is charged to the improved parcels?
I'm saying the analysis should be done and presented in either case to us, but
With all parcels or just improved?
Or just parcels. And the reason I'm saying that we vote to put it on the ballot is that'll put that issue to rest. It's just what the number is. So, and we'll have a consensus as to whether, a vote as to whether people are going to do that. Or is that possible, Mr. Carmel? No. What?
You can't vote to put it on the ballot until you have your numbers in front of you in the resolution in the manner you're going to forward it to the county. They have to be done at the same time. It's not
Okay, then what I'll do is I'll move that we postpone this item to a date certain to...
Excuse me, folks, please allow us to do our business.
To look at the analysis of all parcels versus improved parcels and the dollar amount to do so.
Second. So there's been a motion and a second to continue to date certain, hopefully in the next couple of days, to get the analysis of the numbers more appropriate or correct, exact. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Sure, discussion.
We're voting on putting this measure on the ballot.
No.
No, we can't.
No, not right now.
Mhm.
But, I mean, that's why we're here initially. I'm looking at the wording of this ballot measure, and it seems like it could probably be worded a little bit differently and have a little bit more clarity. So what I'd like to know is, can we vote on putting this measure on the ballot and still have the opportunity to reframe?
Once we vote to have it on the ballot, it is the language that we're voting to vote it on the ballot, which is, I think, the purpose that you made the motion for was to get the number.
On the other hand, I do believe that, I'd hate to say this, but Director Farmer would have an opportunity to have the next resolution reflect some of his concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
During that continuance period, we can
between
tweak
now
it.
and when we meet next date certain.
Get your input. And
So yeah, some of those concerns could be addressed.
That's fine.
Okay, so is everybody clear on the the motion?
I just want to make sure that the audience is clear on what we're about to vote on, because, I'm sure that you are. But since we heard some rumbles of concern out there when we talked about, well, maybe we won't vote today, I just want to make sure that everybody, including those of us that are sitting up here, know exactly what we're doing and what's on the horizon.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to speak for the other directors, but what I'm seeing is a consensus on this board that we think it should go on the ballot, and our concern is more about making sure we have the right numbers. And I think we just can't vote because this specific resolution isn't the right wording yet, but that there's support among this board, and I'm guessing unanimity, but I won't speak for other directors, that it will go on the ballot, but we want to make sure it's the right language, the right amount.
And just to clarify, so we're continuing this, you're directing staff to bring back
Yes.
another analysis of only improved lots. As well
Yes.
as what's before you, so you'll have a look at both.
Correct.
No other one where we're talking partial payments on unimproved?
No,
That gets
I
fairly
think that gets
complicated.
too complicated to have done in a day or two, which we need to
Okay,
do.
and then during that time, we can solicit the input from Director Farmer to make the question a little more
As long
articulate.
as, consent, is that all right with the rest of the directors?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll make my,
Well, we can,
I'll do whatever is good for you.
we
I'll
can.
clear my schedule.
Yeah.
Oh, as soon as possible. Can we do it, how
you
soon
can't
can we
do
do
it
it?
till
Can we
next
do it
week?
Thursday?
You can do it
Okay,
as soon as you want.
Wednesday?
okay.
Okay,
It needs to
You
be
can't
done
do
very
it tomorrow.
soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
all right.
is arranged around this meeting already.
Okay, so we haven't said what date, but it is to date certain, and that's the motion, and we will figure the date once we take the vote, or we need to have the date right
We
now?
need to have the date now.
All right.
Okay.
So does next Monday afternoon?
It's not going to give us enough
It's
time.
Lincoln's birthday.
Yes, but I could make it earlier too.
Friday afternoon?
Friday's not good for him.
We got farmers, and I'm already pushed my work day to.
How about Thursday?
Does that give us enough time, money?
Sure. I mean, it's Rudy's calculations. What's up?
It's
to
a
you?
calculation. You multiply.
That works.
I won't be here.
Thursday afternoon?
Got my surgery, that's okay.
He won't be here, but
It's okay, I don't have to be here.
It's fine with me. Film festival starts at 11 o'clock. Film festival's in here?
Coastal Commission's in town?
Coastal Commission's in town.
No, they're at the lodge.
How about Wednesday?
I can't do it Wednesday.
Okay. Going back to Thursday.
So Thursday
Well, the Coastal Commission is going to be here on Wednesday and Thursday
and Friday
and Friday.
Let's go
at
to
the
Monday.
lodge.
How about Monday the 12th then? Getting back to that. Is it
I can do AM, but.
AM?
Monday morning?
I can't be here on Monday.
We don't need you.
Okay.
Or do we?
I think we do need.
That's fine.
Oh, yes, we do.
I'm sorry.
Folks, please let us conduct our business. We are trying to get this done. No, we don't have to be there for the whole thing. Thursday is fine with me. Does Thursday work? We have a quorum for Thursday, I think.
That's fine. I'm just,
I want to make sure, though, that directors that wouldn't be able to be here feel like their voice would be heard, because if a quorum of 3 means that it would have to be unanimous, which I
Yeah,
suspect
but
it would be.
worst case, it's exactly as written.
Right.
I mean, the consensus is that we're going to put it on a ballot. It's just whether it's this number or another number. And you could take
The following Tuesday might work, too.
13th, but now we're starting to get pretty close to when we have to write up.
Yeah, that's Tuesday. Okay. So Thursday, there's a
Morning.
quorum for Thursday.
Thursday morning?
I can do
9
it
a.m.
as early as, no, I can't do it that early on Thursday. I can do it at 11.
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock Thursday. What do you think? I move.
February 8th.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm checking to see if that's holiday.
Okay.
I've lost my connection.
But we don't have to do it in the Vets Hall. We can do it someplace else.
No, you want to do it in the budget.
You want to do it in the Vets Hall?
It's a
Fine.
public hearing. It's a continued public hearing.
It's a continued public hearing. So Thursday at 11.
I move that we continue this to a date certain, and that would be Thursday at 11 a.m. this week.
All right. Second. Let's have a roll call vote. Is everybody clear on the motion? 11.
Do you want the motion read back, Madam President?
That's a good idea. Let's get it read back.
Okay, I have, he moved to put this item on the ballot and continue, no, let me see, sorry, wrong one. Move to continue the item to a date certain to look at analysis of all parcels compared to improved parcels for February 8th at 11 a.m.
Yes. Roll call.
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
I want to thank everybody for your input. We will be back here for those numbers to be more specific on Thursday at 11 a.m. Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break while people leave. We've got a few more business items, folks. We've got a crowd in the house. I'm serious. I hope the rest of the community comes out when we have to add staff to the other departments, for heaven's sakes. All right. I call the meeting back to order. We have a few items of regular business that we need to cover that were left over from the last meeting. And we will begin with item 3A, General Manager Gruber.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. Item 3A is discussion and consideration of the annual review of the Board of Directors bylaws. And I'm going to turn this over to District Council Tim Carmel, and then he's going to let me do the last 3 items. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Madam President, members of the board, Section 10.1 of your bylaws states that every January you'll review your bylaws and direct that any changes are going to be made. Those changes come back in February. This was jettisoned from last agenda because we didn't have enough time to deal with it, so we're dealing with any potential changes to the bylaws today. And I will note that there's been some discussion regarding changing the meeting date, which is included in Section 2.1 of the bylaws. And if that's the direction that the board provides, that you not take action on the annual meeting schedule, which is the next agenda item, what we'll do then is bring back the proposed change to the meeting date with a meeting schedule that coincides with that. But we would want you to set the time for the February meeting date, because right now it's going to be on the 22nd, because that's what's in your bylaws. So with that, I'll turn it back to you and take any direction for the board.
All right. So are there any questions or any comments on the bylaws from directors?
No, other than the date.
Mm-hmm.
The
dates for the meeting.
And that kind of thing.
And one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carmel, but we can review the bylaws at other times of the year. We're just required to do it at this point. So if we were to decide to make some change, like in the committee section, that we could do that at whatever time we wanted.
Absolutely.
So if we approve this isn't like in stone till next January, essentially.
Nope, it's a fluid document.
Oh, it looks like a paper document.
And
Director Berenger, Vice President Berenger.
I'll move for further discussion that we adopt the bylaws as in our packet.
And not changing the meeting date.
Not changing any meeting dates.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Vice President Berenger, seconded by Director Farmer. Further discussion? Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that when we talk about the meeting schedule, I think that not only because the 4-hour limit, but also because we do tend to need some study sessions, and we do want to have some town halls, including having something relating to a strategic longer range plan that we need to do. And that's not on the agenda today, but in order to accomplish some of those things, we need to have more than just our business meeting as we've been having in the past several years. And the regular business meeting that we have been having, even before we had the 4-hour limit, were long, which means that even if we didn't have the limit, we'd need to have another meeting per month to enable us to do strategic planning and have town halls. One of the things if we don't change which day of the month, now the reason we were looking at changing the day was because there's so many ones that had changed. So, we've got all of these, we say it's on the 4th Thursday except for these 4 months, which is a third of the year. So, but we just want to leave it on the 4th Thursday.
Well, are we going to discuss this more on the next
when we get to the meeting schedule?
Yeah.
So it doesn't change the bylaws.
Yeah, the bylaws, we can pass them now, but if we change the meeting schedule at the next item, then we can come back.
Then we give direction.
Then we get revised bylaws probably next week to approve again.
The time is set by resolution, or we could put time back into the bylaws and we could just give direction on that. I'd like to see the time change to 2:00, but we don't have to put it in the bylaws and make it, we can do it by resolution. I think that's okay as long as it's consistent. I think that's helpful to the public anyway, to figure out when the meetings are.
It's
Mr.
a little more flexible to have it so that you can change the time when you want. So did I understand that you wanted to discuss the issue of changing the meeting date, but you were going to do it at the next item?
Yeah.
Okay, well, perhaps you should just, at this point, jump this item and go on to your next item, not take any action and reserve
Jump
the
in
right
the
to come
line.
back.
Item 3B.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. Item 3B is discussion and consideration of adopting a resolution 01-2018 established in the CCSD, the 2018 CCSD regular board meeting schedule. The recommendation is staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution and established at the regular board meeting schedule. Just real quick on discussion, it is proposed that the board adopt the regular meeting schedule for 2018 in order to confirm the regular meeting dates. This schedule, when adopted, will be used by staff, the media, local community groups, and interested individuals to prepare the board meetings. The board has the authority to amend this schedule as the year progresses or the need arises. If the board decides to consider a month without a meeting, it should be in the month other than July due to the need to hold the fire hazard fuel reduction contract award public hearing in the month of July. It should be noted also that pursuant to bylaw section 2.1, the time for holding regular meetings is established by resolution. The attached resolution includes the blanks for the board to fill in the individual times for each meeting. Just some dates down here that you might want to consider when you're thinking about this. The January 18th, the third Thursday, avoids conflicts with the Art and Wine Festival. The April 19th, third Thursday, avoids conflicts with the Wildflower Festival. November 15th, the third Thursday, this avoids conflicts with Thanksgiving holidays. The standard CCSD holidays have been established for the 2018 with Thanksgiving on Thursday, November 22nd. And then the fourth one that the board should note as a date is December 13th, which is December 13th, which is the second Thursday, and this avoids conflicts with the Christmas holidays. So those are some dates to consider, and on the attached sheets, we've indicated those dates to not conflict with other community events. Thank you.
Question. Why are we doing December 13th and not December 20th? Because the 20th is the third Thursday, and Christmas isn't until the following Tuesday.
It's mostly due to Christmas vacation schedules and staffing and things like that, but it's really up to the board. I know historically we've looked at, what else? Yeah, that's why. It's usually based on that, is the conflict that it has with the preparation for the agenda and things like that, and district council schedule and directors' holidays and things like that. Another option is not even have a board meeting in December,
I like that.
So that's...
We have to have one in December. That's when we appoint the new officers, and it's an election year. We can't skip December.
But if you change the bylaws, you could. No. But something to...
I think we need, I mean, is there a serious conflict? We can't do it on the 20th? Is that a situation?
I would suggest that there are some people that might be, staff especially, might be traveling. Let's say they're going to get home on the 25th. They don't want to have a meeting, having a meeting on the 20th, not being able to follow up on the 21st on anything that's going on. They might be flying out. I just think that it's no skin off of our nose. I almost, in fact, in my notes here, I said, why don't we make it the second Thursday of every month? Then we wouldn't have to change it at all. But I think the community has been inculcated into the third Thursday of a month. I have no problem with the 13th of December.
And the 13th, I believe, is historically, correct me, Monique, right, historically is what we've done all along. So that's not a change, the 13th. is not a change on December from what we usually do.
Right.
Yeah, second Thursday. It has been for years, so if we were to do anything
How is
different.
it the 13th again? It was the 13th last year. Oh,
And as it's going to be this time.
but the 15th would be the 3rd.
15th would be a Saturday.
Anyway, I would like to see the December one on the 20th, but I can understand if there isn't a majority that want to go that direction. Director Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that it's not just our convenience that should be considered, but also the members of the community. And considering the importance of the final meeting of the year, especially with the installation of officers and other discussions that we have at that time, that I feel that the closer we are to Christmas, the possibility of there being fewer members of the community being involved just kind of comes to mind. So in that sense alone, I would prefer that it be the date and remain the date that is set right here.
We have a member of the public would like to.
We have a public comment. And why are we not doing it the week after? Because we don't want to have to put the agenda out on the day after Thanksgiving. Is that correct? That's why we're doing it on the 15th of November? Because otherwise we would have to have the staff here to put out the agenda the day after Thanksgiving. See, that's why we should change it from Thursday anyway. Laurel Stewart.
Yes, my thought. Have a meeting in December. In my experience as a volunteer, we take December off. A couple of organizations, but you are more in the nature of a business. We want to see the business get done. And what's the conflict with the Wildflower Festival? That's not even here.
If I could make a comment, excuse me, I wasn't recognized. If I could make a comment, I did want to remark on the Wildflower Festival. Having been a volunteer for many years, is that we don't begin to occupy this building until Friday afternoon. The one that's usually at the end of April, sometimes it runs into May 1st. Correct. All right. And in that regard, as I said, the collection of the wildflowers begins Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. Then we come in here at about 3:30 Friday afternoon and begin the setup. And then, of course, the festival takes place on Saturday and Sunday. So I see no reason, I don't think there's any conflict.
We could do it on the 20, are you talking about 26th?
Yeah, I'm talking about April, so we could do it on the 26th, and I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, there wouldn't be any conflict. Now, you could ask the people that organize the Wildflower Festival if that's the case, but I don't think that's true. And then we could have it on the fourth Thursday as usual.
I think that I understand your issue. There's a lot of people that are out there collecting those flowers that wouldn't be here on a Thursday. If we had FFRP coming in and giving a talk or speaking there, I see no reason why we wouldn't leave the tradition there so that the Wildflower Festival would feel comfortable that everything would be spick and span ready to go. That's
I think the more consistent we can be, the better.
Tradition.
Tradition is not consistent, though.
Tradition.
To quote Theodore Bickel, tradition!
Okay, now we're getting punchy. Director Wharton, did you have any input on this? Director Pearson.
I'd like to throw a curveball and suggest that we have 2 meetings every month. Now I know nobody wants this, and I don't either, but I think it makes sense. We have one meeting that covers sections 1 through 4, and we get the general manager's report, we get all the budget done, we get a lot of stuff done, and then we come back at another date and we do 5, the consent agenda and the conflicting areas, at a separate meeting. We've run over almost every time. This is the only opportunity that we get to sit around together and discuss the business of the community. And it just doesn't work in 3 or 4 hours. It hasn't. I've been to these meetings consistently for the last 2 or 3 years, and it just doesn't happen. It would make sense to me to have a shorter 3-hour meeting on one day and then another 2 to 3 hour meeting on another day, and all of us be fresh. Now, to help out with the staff, I would say that we would have one meeting on Monday, the next meeting on Wednesday, or a meeting Tuesday and Thursday, or whatever, very close together, okay? One in the same week, have one meeting for the benefit of the community at 6 p.m., and we'll be done by 9 o'clock. And the other one, we start at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and we finish up by dinner time. My 2 cents.
Vice President Behringer.
I love somebody throwing out a wild one. I really do. However, as been discussed many, many times, the meetings tend to be agenda-driven, the public. And I think that to try and have the public setting up for 2 meetings a month is somehow difficult. And yes, we were always able to, hopefully we can get this smooth enough so that we can get all of our business done in a shorter amount of time, or less than the full amount of time. And it's easy for us to schedule another meeting, especially if it's agenda specific. If it's just the consent agenda and a couple other things, nobody would come anyway, and we could just postpone it to the next day. So and it is tougher on staff. No matter how you look at it, it's tougher on staff to prepare 1 month's worth of agenda packet compared to 2. So I'm for just setting up the schedule and being free to schedule another meeting if we think that there's an agenda item that's going to be interesting for the public, and just schedule it a month at a time.
May I make an observation?
General Manager Gruber.
You probably don't want to hear this. The problem started when we started limiting the times of the meetings. You know, because what's happening is we've created an artificial timeline to address the business of the district. We have yet to finish an agenda. We take those items that aren't finished and we punt it to another agenda, and in many instances we don't finish, and it's caused a snowball effect. What I would ask the board to consider is, and I know you probably don't want to do this and it's your decision, but when we had 7 hour meetings, we got the district's business done, and we went to closed session, and that was it. I know the intentions were good for limiting the meetings, but as I've always said, it takes us 5 hours to do the flag salute. And so with public comment, you're already 2 hours into the meeting, 2-3 hours into the meeting, you've created an artificial timeline, and it's so, you know, we'll support whatever you want to do. District council, myself, district clerk, we have concerns about the available resources that we have from a staffing perspective. Again, we'll accommodate the board, whatever they want to do. But if you start talking about standing committees now, which is essentially another board meeting, now you're talking.
Then we have to provide the resources to make sure that the staff has enough resources and time.
And I'm okay with that, as long as you understand that the other things that are also important may not get done. So I'm a resource-based kind of guy. We talk about limited financial resources. We talk about limited staffing. This could all be resolved if we rolled up our sleeves and went back to 1 7-hour meeting and we got it done. And if you wanted to call a special meeting or you wanted to have a community workshop, then we could do that. But since we implemented the 4-hour timeline, we have never been able to finish an agenda. We are creating another, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I'm just trying to help you understand where we're coming from. We punt the items to the next board meeting. In many instances, we don't finish those, and it's just we feel, at least I feel, we're getting farther and farther and farther behind on really important agenda items. So whatever you guys want to do, we support.
I would like to speak to that. There's a reason why the 4-hour limit's important, and the reason why we should be fresh for making policy decisions and having discussion. Because I know the way I feel about it, being on the board, we don't get very much time to discuss the policy issues. We hear what's happening on the operational side, and we get lots of slideshows and reports about what's happening. on the operational side, but we don't get to address policy, and we would probably be able to reduce the amount of extra work that's done and the amount of time that we spend in meetings if what we do is have a more focused meeting that's like a study session. Here's what's going on with all the operations, so that we learn about what's going on that will underlie the decisions we need to make about district policy. Because when we have time to actually address policies of the district and set priorities for the district, because this is why we end up with so much to do all at once and have 7-hour meetings anyway. Most districts do have 2 meetings a month. Most districts in this county and in this state have 2 meetings a month. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to say to the general manager, look, we want to set the right priorities. In order to do that, we have to have 3 votes. In order to do that, we have to have a public meeting. Would I like it if I could just set it and forget it? Yes. But we can't do that until we actually get our act together. And I don't think we can get our act together when we're only looking at the policy issues at hour 6 and hour 7. I just don't think that that's the solution. I am supportive. In the same week, it's the same. It seems to me, noticing does take extra time if you have 2 meetings, but it seems to me if we're looking at the same agenda items, that it's the same amount of work to put the agenda together and the agenda packet together.
Is the information that we're providing from staff to the board too much information?
I think it's really good for us to know what's going on because it helps us make good decisions about what we need to do, but we haven't had a chance to talk priorities at all. We end up, even if we were doing 6 and 7 hours, I'm sorry, I don't make good decisions and have good discussion, and I get cranky after that long a period of time. So I don't make good policy decisions for the community, and that's where it's at. I think we would all like to have more discussions. I know when I'm talking one-on-one with the director, we come up with lots of things. Vice President Berenger.
May I suggest that the general manager's report, as comprehensive as it is, takes a lot of time. And what I've done in the past, and I'm sure you have, President Rice, I make it a policy to, once I get the packet, I read the packet, and I schedule a meeting with the general manager, and I go over the entire report. It's available for the public. The public can digest it before the meeting. And if you would just say, if we would just approve the general manager's report as submitted, I won't have to ask them all these questions. Maybe the public can come up and talk about things, and maybe they can ask questions, and we can actually answer them. So I tend to think that a lot of time, it's not a criticism as much as I tend to think that the general manager's report tends to be, sometimes it's a half an hour or more, and it can be done in very, very quickly. I don't know if any other director does that, but I do have, the reason I don't ask a lot of questions is I've already gotten them answered by the general manager a few days prior to the meeting, and it works very good for me.
And that's great, and I'm glad that it works good for you, and I do the same thing, but I think it's incumbent upon us as public officials to make sure that the public hears those questions asked so that they have the answers and the public has a chance, because they may not read the packet, but they might watch the meeting. So hearing the questions from us and hearing the general manager's report, and Director Wharton followed by Director Pearson.
It's just not staff resources where we would be doubling. We got AGP.
Oh, that's true.
And Chief Hollingsworth's back there, and he's just sitting back there. He's going to be sitting back there for 2 days for these meetings. I'm sure there's something else that he would rather be doing, as well as Monique and Tim and the general manager and Rudy or Bob if they're here as well. So it's not just, I think, doubling that time that we're requiring staff to be here is taking them away from other things. We have to look at that opportunity cost of, well, if we have them here at this meeting, what aren't they doing over here? And
good point.
That's true. There is trade-off there.
So I wouldn't be for 2 meetings a month. I would rather continue on with the 4-hour meetings, and if we want to go a little bit longer, let's go 4/5 vote. And if we get to a point where we're just looking at each other a little punch drunk, and then we can say, you know what, let's call this and let's move it because there's some important decisions at the back of this agenda. So I think I'd like to see us continue that way. We've done fairly well, I think, and I think as we continue to move on as a big one unit, that we would become even more well-versed in it.
One other thing really quick, Madam President, it could be the matter of the order. You know, this is an agenda that has been created because this is the way we've decided to do it. We could have regular agenda items first, followed by consent, and then all the reports afterwards, and, you know, then decide if you want to extend the meetings. But the way it's set up right now is the real important, the meat and potatoes of the agenda are the last items, which is the regular agenda. So if there was a willingness on the board's part to switch the order, I think it would be a good compromise and possibly get everything done that you want to get done in a reasonable amount of time.
Wow, that would have been really good last year when I suggested it. I didn't have agreement from the vice president at the time to do it, so when it's 1 against 2, it's like that's just the way that it is. Director Pearson?
I'd support it. Yeah, I would support that. That's fine with me. And you going to the general manager is great, and I would like to do that some too, and maybe more with the financial guy to get more of an explanation. But I think the perception that I had as part of the community was that, you know, Jim, Vice President Behringer wasn't doing his job because he wasn't asking any questions. Okay? It's the perception that Director Farmer is doing a great job because he's asking tough questions and trying to get some issues brought up. Okay? So that, you know, not asking questions at the meeting in front of the community, I think is key.
Asking the staff prior to the meeting so we don't catch them off guard is good, so they know what questions they need to answer, because we don't want to put them on the spot on things where they don't have the information. But we should do some things. Director Farmer?
I just want to follow up on what Director Wharton said earlier about if we have 2 meetings a month, that means AGP is here twice a month. That means we already pay them for each meeting, so we'd be paying them twice a month instead of once a month, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and it's an extra $500 because we pay each director per each meeting.
That's true, too. And we move all this stuff out here, and then we have the conflict
Can
with the
we
schedule.
Can we do the video in-house?
Yeah, it would look like
I'm trying to get my lighting better.
we could do it. I'm not sure that it would be the quality that AGP provides.
I'm sure it wouldn't. I'm just saying those are minor expenses overall when you look at the overall budget. And whether or not the different staff members are here, I mean, Chief Hollingsworth is here because the item on the agenda was an item. And I assume that the general manager in managing the personnel resources is the one that decides whether our staff people are here or not. We don't have Rudy here today, but, you know, or Bob. Vice President Behringer?
Perhaps we could have as a policy that if after 4 or 5 hours we don't continue, the policy is that the next morning we have the meeting, the continuation of the meeting. No, you don't like that? Okay, I'll throw it out there. I move that we approve the calendar as in item 3B.
We need to set a time too.
And
the
at
time's
2
blank.
p.m. every day.
So if I could
unless changed.
I think it's a great idea there with the 2 p.m., but I just want to say this, that perhaps on the next regular agenda, that we discuss what order the items are going to be discussed, because that's already just been brought up here a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And also with regard to, just like today, we had the last meeting, something came up, it didn't work out, so we set a special meeting. So we should be open to, instead of having 2 meetings a month, be open to the possibility of having a second meeting if we don't take care of business in the first one. I think that, to me, that would be more functional in the long run.
Exactly, I appreciate that, yes.
Would you be comfortable with the president and vice president who work in conjunction with the general manager, according to our current bylaws? Would you be comfortable with us looking at the agenda order and reordering it for February and then giving us some feedback on that reordering, or do you want to have a meeting to talk about that first? Did you understand the question?
Yeah. I think I'd rather have it to be a discussion among the board members, just because I think we would all have valuable input to give. That is no reflection on the president and vice president. I just think since the consequences of the decision is going to be affected, it's going to affect all of us, and I think we should all have the opportunity to discuss it and come up with the decision. That's just my feeling.
Do you want to discuss it now? Because I'm. What was
Well, I think it might be outside of the agenda
Okay.
item.
Yeah.
It's not really outside the bylaws, but we're not on the bylaws right now. So the motion is the dates on this agenda item for the resolution with 2 p.m. as the time is the motion. And
That's
I didn't
my
hear a
motion.
second. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Vice President Behringer, seconded by Director Wharton. Could you please read back the motion so we know what we're voting on? And then call the roll, please.
Spending this much time on it.
Moved adoption of Resolution 1, 2018, establishing the 2018 CCSD regular board meeting schedule in item 3B to 2 p.m. each meeting.
Now, I seem to recall, pardon me for not being recognized, but I seem to recall that last year, President Rice made an effort to have 4 meetings that were at staggered times, like in the evening. And here we are approving all of the meetings being at the exact same time. I'd just like to know how the president feels about that.
I think 2 p.m. is a good start time, and our additional meetings that we may schedule can be scheduled in the evening times.
Cool.
So further discussion? Otherwise, let's have a roll call, please.
Vice President Behringer.
Aye.
Director Wharton.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
Director Pearson.
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye. I think maybe if we had more chance to discuss things like this, we would get a lot more done because we'd have it settled.
Okay, do we go back to 3A?
Yes, I think we go back to 3A, Mr. Carmel.
Do you have to introduce it again? Go ahead.
I can go ahead and I can just go ahead. 3A is discussion and consideration of annual review of the Board of Directors bylaws. Just quick on discussion, 10.01 of the Board Directors bylaws provides that you are to be reviewed annually at the first regular meeting in January. An amendment are to be considered for the adoption of the first regular meeting in February. According to the attached is a document of the current board bylaws as revised on August 24th, 2017 by Resolution 38-2017, and again on September 28th, 2017 per Resolution 39-2017 for the board's review and consideration. Recently, there's been board discussion regarding changing the regular meeting day and the fourth Thursday of every month, which is established by bylaws 2.1. We've already covered that. If the board decides to change the meeting dates, staff has recommended to defer the action of the regular board meeting schedule. So, and attaches the most recent copy of all your bylaws if there's any questions about it.
I move
Vice President Behringer.
I move that we accept the bylaws as in the packet.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second under discussion. I would just like to state that back when Director Clift was still on the board, we took out and shortened the bylaws to limit the things that were included. There was a lot of things, including some things about board conduct and decorum and things specific to the travel policies, things that didn't need to be in the bylaws, but that we had full intention prior to the drought emergency. We had full intention of going back and putting together the board policy manual. So I would request possibly a friendly amendment that would say that we would direct staff to work on building that policy manual with an ad hoc committee, whether it was me and the vice president or 2 other board members. I think we need to have some of those policies back in place because it's more clear to have kind of more like an instruction manual kind of thing. Have a motion, have a second, then you have discussion, public comment. Those kinds of things are it would be good to have down in writing again.
Okay, I wouldn't accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, that's
but
fair.
Given the fact that it could be a board goal that by July, that we revisit the bylaws for
policy
inclusion
manual.
of.
Yeah, I don't think they need to be
policy manual
included in the bylaws, but I do think we need a board policy manual. I think
Right.
be a helpful thing for all of us.
So my suggestion is that we make it a goal and not included in this particular
In the motion, okay.
Do we
Just
have a
wanted to bring it up. Yes, we already had a second. Director Pearson seconded. So we have a motion and a second, and that was the discussion. I just wanted to make sure that we don't drop that ball again, because we already dropped it once in 14.
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. Thank you very much. Item 3C.
By the way, I just want to mention, I saw Tom Brady drop the ball yesterday. It was too bad. Anyway, you were just mentioning about dropping the ball.
All right, I can't follow that, so.
Yeah, but I noticed you have the Eagles colors on today, Harry.
Well, it's an odd thing, and this has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I'm a big Patriots fan, only because I like the way the organization is run, and I love Tom Brady's leadership as well as his skill. But even though I was born in Los Angeles, my parents were living in Philadelphia when I was conceived. So I had really mixed feelings about that. And so I was actually glad to see the Eagles win. So there you go.
All right. Item 3C, General Manager Gruber.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. Item 3C is discussion and consideration of establishing committee and director liaison assignments. The board president will lead the discussion regarding establishing committees and the proposed appointments to the directors to each committee. The following is review of the proposed ad hoc committees and their tasks, as well as liaison assignments, which are being considered by the board.
Okay, so we're pretty good on the
I won't go into
detail
each
here.
one of these. They're right there, and the committees. And then on the back page, if you flip it over on page 25, is the previous, the current liaison assignments for the board. If the board wants to consider keeping all these in place, or adding some, or eliminating some of them, that's their choice also. Thank you.
Okay, so here's my thinking here, and there has not been discussion of goals going forward, but except for in vague terms, talking about doing a longer term strategic planning and some town halls to get some priorities set based on the goals and the mission of the district, and part of those goals, I would hope, would be to set some standing committees, but in the meantime, business still continues forward, and so we need to maintain some of the, in order to provide some guidance to staff on these things before it comes to the board, so we can spend less time, hopefully, at the board, because we've got recommendations from committees. I think we need to keep the ad hoc committees in place. I have no particular attachment to any particular ad hoc committee and serving on them or having particular people serve on them. I'd like to acknowledge that Director Sanders and Director Thompson were very involved in the fire area, and right now we don't have a lot of people that have a lot of history experience in the fire service, but this is an especially important area, so I want to make sure we have two people who feel strongly about working on that in that area. But otherwise, I don't particularly, and PROS is not an ad hoc committee.
That's right.
So that's actually a liaison assignment and not an ad hoc committee. Vice President Berenger.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of set my the tone, I think, of this item, in that I don't think that we should continue any of the ad hoc committees, and I don't think we should have liaisons in a lot of things. We do have a standing committee of pros. All of us could go to a pros meeting if we want. It has an agenda. It's a public meeting, public comment, and I think pros likes to see somebody there. The general manager goes there. I don't mind going there, but being assigned as a liaison, I don't think is important. And an ad hoc committee, I think the public has been asking for a standing committee, and I think finance should be a standing committee that has a certain period of time, let's say a month, and that standing committee goes over the budget, and we get public feedback and everything else. And as a standing committee, it doesn't need anybody to be assigned to it. A standing committee is a standing committee, and rather than ad hoc. A fire department ad hoc, I don't see that as being, some people might support, but I don't know what benefit the fire department gets from that. But I know the fire department can talk to any director or what, other than if this tax gets passed, why do we need an ad hoc committee to babysit the department? I don't see that. Parks, Recreation, and Open Space is a regular committee. Water supply, permitting, and et cetera, I think it should be an executive committee, members like the president and the vice president. And then if you go to the next page, where we have a whole bunch of things, information technology ad hoc, that has ended, I believe, unless you think we should have an ad hoc committee that continues to look at information technology. We made our suggestions, and it's done. North Coast Advisory Council, again, that's the reason I've been going to that is because it's just similar to the sheriff coming up. The North Coast Advisory Council doesn't have any relationship to the CCSD, but they like to hear about it. So to have a liaison there might be reasonable. But Coast Union School District or Healthcare District or Forest Committee or Tourism Board or Fire Safe Focus Group, Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch, San Simeon CSD, it's adding, we're sticking our nose into other people's business without them asking. That's kind of what that's my position. That's all. I'm just setting the stage for my opinion.
Director Farmer.
I tend to kind of disagree that we're sticking our nose in other people's business. I think it's valuable if various members of the board attend various meetings that other groups here in the community have, and if something comes up that we need to know here or that we can pass on to the community, because there's very few people that are attending these meetings. I mean, the two that I go to, the Forest Committee and Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch, it's usually the committees themselves. There's no public participation to speak of. And if there's some important item that comes up, we have the opportunity, we as board members have the opportunity to come back here and report that, and therefore more people in the community know about it. So in that regard, I think it's important that somebody from the board attend these meetings for that reason, if nothing else. Personally, I feel honored with the opportunity to attend the two meetings that, I mean, it says down here that I'm the healthcare district, but that's the first I've ever heard of that I'm the liaison to that. I'll be more than happy to do it. But as far as I know, these two meetings, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve there. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I've gone to some of these meetings, and I really appreciate it's in our bylaws that if you attend a meeting, especially at a CCSD expense, that you would come back and report on that, and I think that's good. And I don't have a problem with that any director could go to the Forest Committee or could go to, and please bring things back, or go to I go to the North Coast Advisory Council and I come back and say, but when the healthcare district, if I go to a meeting, a healthcare district meeting, and I think it affects our district, fine, I could bring that back. But to have the healthcare district think that we have a reason to be there other than being invited, I think is Cambria Tourism Board. We should not have anybody representing the CCSD there. I don't think we don't have we don't have somebody in the fight. I'm just reducing the number of people, the official view for coming from the rural water and sewer and firefighting district, and that's what we should concentrate on. That's just my thought.
Yes, Director Farmer.
I was just going to say, with regard to the Cambria Tourism Board, I might tend to agree there, but since we happen to have the Vice President as the President of the Cambria Tourism Board, we've already got those bases covered there.
But I never attend those meetings as an official.
I understand what you're saying.
And I report as a courtesy, but.
Well, let me set the tone for what I'm thinking on these committees, because I think it's important to have liaison to the organizations that deal with things that we also deal with. The Forest Committee, the FFRP, we deal with those issues that the NCAC, we have issues occasionally because something comes up at an NCAC meeting relating to somebody trying to build a house or expand a house where there's an issue that it's good for us to have a point person. And this is not just for us, this is for the public. So when the public, like I have known since I was born, that Sanders and Thompson were the directors to go to if I had a concern about fire, because they're the ones that kind of knew about what was going on with fire. And if we were to have standing committees, it would be a committee, unlike the PROS, which is actually a commission and not a committee. And the difference is they are advisory to the board here. A committee of the board is two board members and members of the public. And the reason you do that is so hopefully you don't have 7-hour meetings, for example, because what you have is you have two board members and some members of the public, and it's a public meeting with public input so that it can be brought, the recommendations can be brought with fairly good confidence level, because there's also members of the public there giving input, that the recommendations are coming from a good spot. The reason why you want to have public members on standing committees is so that when there's an election or there's somebody resigns because they're moving out of town, you don't lose all that institutional knowledge, because those public members might stay on. I mean, Los Osos has standing committees that some of those standing committee members have been volunteering for like a dozen years. So that information and that institutional history still remains with the district, no matter who the elected officials are and no matter who the staff is. And it does take, as we know from the BRP committee, it takes a while to get up to speed on virtually anything for this district. So having some citizens that are getting up to speed in the area of fire, in the area of water, wastewater, that would be a helpful thing. Just like think about PROS. All those PROS members have spent a lot of years learning about our parks, recreation, and open space and how we handle those things, right? And I think it's beneficial to us. We hardly ever even have to talk about it, because they bring recommendations and they take care of stuff so that we don't have to worry about it. I think it's incumbent upon us, and it would shorten our meetings because it provides another venue for the public to also participate, not just as members of the committee. That's my vision of the committees.
Okay. So thank you, President Rice. Never mind. I yield.
I'll take that as a support. And this is why I wanted to continue the ad hocs, because I really do want to make sure that what we do is appoint some good committees and have that discussion about utilities and priorities. We have to do the strategic planning before I think that we could do that in a good way. So, and I think that it's important to have some board members in case the general manager sees something coming forward, so that we can refer it to committee more easily. That's my thought. But we can. I mean, I'm sure general manager wouldn't mind not having any committees for a little while. But I would worry that things would fall behind. At least finance committee we should set.
You're saying set a standing committee for finance or ad hoc?
I could go either way on that one, but I think the budget process is about to begin, so we need to have a board resource for the staff to get direction.
Might I suggest that if you have an ad hoc committee, that the ad hoc committee meets in public, so that we can get
Okay.
The ad hoc committee
We can
has
set it as a
additional members
standing.
from, in fact, if anybody is in the audience that wants to be part of the finance ad hoc, because I think a lot of people would like to have good input, and it would be good to get them from the public. So that would be, if it's not standing, the activity of the finance ad hoc committee should be public oriented.
And I agree with that, which means that there's no reason to not make it a standing committee. I think it doesn't need to necessarily be the executive committee, but it's also important to recognize that as we go into the more longer term planning for goals, that this is something that, because of the timing right now, we just need to have some folks to be able to give input. Director Farmer?
I just wanted to say that with regard to ad hoc committees, let's just say that this past year, the ad hoc committee for water and wastewater infrastructure has been Vice President Behringer and myself. If that were expanded to a standing committee, we still need to be let's say the fulcrum of that, because we have information to dispense to the members of the public so they can be more informed, and we can come up with, how could I say it, therefore their suggestions, they would have much more knowledge, and that's the way I feel it should be done.
So I'm hearing standing committee for finance and standing committee for infrastructure, and the two board members for infrastructure being Behringer and Farmer. Is that sound?
That's fine with me.
And I don't know, on finance, we can go further on the finance. I'm still working pretty hard on the permitting issues with the advanced water treatment plant. And I don't think there needs to be a specific committee now that we've got the EIR done, because that was the main focus of that committee when it was but now that we have the EIR and we're just kind of working through the operational tasks involved in getting the permitting, I don't think it's as important. I mean, they don't need board direction to get the permit. They know they got to get that's all operational, so that's probably not a necessary committee. And I agree on the IT committee, if something comes up, we can make an ad hoc committee for it, because it would be a limited time. So I'm hearing, I didn't hear anything on the fire department right now, but we do have a few, Director Horton.
Well, regarding the fire, probably a question for Chief Hollingsworth, if I may. How many ad hoc meetings are there, or have there been in the past? Or how many do you think you're going to be having in the future, these ad hoc committees with the fire department?
With Director Sanders and Director Thompson, I believe there was probably a total of half a dozen meetings over a period of about a year and a half.
Right.
There was specific focus to those meetings.
Right.
It is entirely possible, it's not my job to figure out the administrative level on what you're talking about here. However, there are absolutely going to be issues that come up that a ad hoc committee would be very beneficial, not only to the department and our future direction, but then also to the CCSD as a governing agency. And so it would make sense to me to have something in place that is used and vetted for purpose and cause, not necessarily scheduling a meeting every second Thursday.
Yeah, with that suggestion, I mean, Director Pearson and I, we met with Chief Hollingsworth, and we both expressed great interest in the fire department moving forward, and I would almost suggest with Director Pearson's approval is, and Director Farmer, because this would affect him, to appoint maybe Director Pearson and I to that. And but again, Director
Correct
Farmer
me if I'm wrong, that we could have a standing committee that essentially met twice a year, where they could be, Mr. Carmel, they could meet on an as-needed basis, even if it was a standing committee, right? It doesn't have to be like every other whatever.
Even though I'm a big supporter of standing committees, it does require an agenda, it requires posting.
It does, but then you would have public input, and I think Fire Safe Focus is fairly well attended. I think the meeting today speaks to that there's plenty of people that would want to be part of a standing committee for fire.
Clarification, with an ad hoc, could the public attend as well and have input?
Sure.
Or is that,
Yes.
Yes, they can.
is it just less organized?
Correct.
Correct.
And
Okay.
it's not necessarily publicly announced in the same formal kind of way that other meetings are.
I think we can leave fire ad hoc. I would like to do that.
And I would
Yeah.
support,
I mean, it seems the fire department has a great avenue to the people, as evidenced today.
But do they have an avenue to get to the board for the policies that need to be made through the general manager? That's where my concern is, because it's not about just necessarily.
the one thing you did say that the public did know that it was Director Sanders and Thompson, and if the public knows that Mr. Wharton and Pearson would be the go-to guys, and if the chief has an issue, the chief could actually say, hey, when can we get together on this? And if you think you need public input, make sure that people know about it, but it wouldn't have to be formally posted on the front door. So I'd support Mr. Wharton and Pearson to be,
Director Farmer.
or Farmer, yeah, I don't care who.
Well, I don't know if I'm affected by it, but I do want to mention that I also met with Chief Hollingsworth, but it was on a different day. And when the chief said, oh yeah, I met with Directors Wharton and Wharton and Pearson. And I said, well, gee, how come I wasn't included? We all could have done it one day. He says, and Chief Hollingsworth astutely commented, well, I think it's a violation of the Brown Act. Oh, that's right. And I just figured, well, it's three guys getting together to talk with the chief. So I did meet with the chief, and we probably discussed slightly different items that were discussed. However, I'm more than happy with Director Pearson Wharton, the newest directors, and being involved with Fire Safe. I think that's a very cool thing.
Okay, so let me summarize what I think that I'm hearing as consensus. Thank you, Chief Hollingsworth. I'm hearing that a standing committee for finance, standing committee for infrastructure, and an ad hoc committee for the fire department, ad hoc committee for fire being Directors Wharton and Pearson. Standing committee infrastructure would be Directors Farmer and Vice President Berenger, and some members of the public, but we have to go through that in a separate process, I believe, right? Process, yes. So we'll look at how we do that. Maybe and I don't know who's doing finance yet. Who's on the finance committee? Does anybody have any suggestions? I don't mind doing it. I mean, I've gotten a bit up to my knees in the budget as it is last year with the whole process.
I'd be glad to serve on that one.
You're up to your knees, you still got your knees up.
I'm short. Would that be? Okay, so Director Pearson and I will serve as the Finance Committee. So if Vice President Berenger and Director Farmer would meet to discuss how you're going to go about involving some members on the committee as public members, and Director Pearson and I will do the same thing for the other one, and we've got Director Pearson and Director Wharton on the ad hoc Fire Department Committee, which doesn't need any public members unless you guys want to meet and determine that you want to do that. And we'll bring that back as part of what we do when we talk about goals next month. I think we're dropping that one. We're dropping the information technology. So did we get that?
But the information technology, if something does come up,
Right,
it can always
then we
just be
can
appointed
develop
to that.
another, right, the board president has the authority to appoint members to ad hoc committees as
Thank you.
needed. On the liaisons, I do think it's helpful, because if something comes up, you don't have to speak for the district necessarily, it's more just to make sure the district's interests aren't being lost or caught up in somebody else's business kind of thing. Yes, Director Pearson?
Yeah, I also, there's certain things that we're joined at the hip with, right? Like the hazard mitigation plan with the health department.
Right.
Okay? And there's grants coming up that
Right.
I would like to talk to them about, because they need to be involved in those grant applications, et cetera, so.
What if we make it an emergency services committee instead of just fire committee? Because then because we do have EMTs, then it becomes, if there's an issue that comes up with a grant, you guys could look at it?
Is
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
does that work?
Be the liaison for,
Right, so if there's something that comes up,
and the fire safe.
can, Chief Hollingsworth, do you get agendas from the healthcare district emailed to you? Can you please, General Manager Gruber, can you please make sure that Directors Pearson and Wharton get on the list for the agenda for the healthcare district so they can see if they have a meeting coming up that we need to be at because there's something or other.
And one other thing I just wanted to share with the board is that, part of my goals as a general manager, and there'll be a few of them, is being more visible out in the community and attending more of these meetings. And obviously, looking at this list of liaison assignments, I can't attend all of them, but my goal is to attend all of them, maybe on a quarterly basis or something like that, so I can also help out in this area and come back and report to the board. But I think it's important that I be seen out there in the public and in the community and attend these also. I could add to the list of this too. So, different associations and different civic clubs and the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. So, I think maybe with that too, I think that'll help the board in areas that you might be concerned about it not being kept apprised of certain things. I'll do my best. I'll work with Monique and come up with a quarterly calendar to maybe attend all of these on a quarterly basis so I can keep the board up to date on what's going on, but also be seen out in the community a little bit more.
Right, and that's great in conjunction with the board liaisons. Vice President Berenger, do you want to continue with the North Coast being the point person for North NCAC?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay,
That'd be a little-
thank you very much for doing that. I continue to about quarterly go to San Simeon CSD meetings, but I think I think fire safe focus, we don't necessarily need to have a specific person to attend those meetings, but anybody, Director Wharton or what, and if you need to have the compensation to be able to go, then bring it back to the board so that we can authorize it, and once it's authorized by the board majority, then you can have the $100 for the meeting.
Why don't we just make, along with the fire department, why don't we make Wharton and Pearson, like you said,
Point people for the
point
fire.
people for fire safe, and what's the other one? Healthcare district.
Healthcare district,
So
yeah.
if somebody in the public wants to know what's
Yeah.
going on there, if
I have
that's okay with you.
I think any of the meetings any of the organizations that are on this list, that if a director attends one of those meetings and brings back a report, that they can be paid for that meeting, because they're reporting back to the board on it.
If there's an agenda on there.
Right, if there's
If the group
something
that you
on
go
the,
to has
right,
an agenda.
that's right.
Okay.
But I think in general, because that's what the state law says, is that if you attend a meeting, it has to be authorized by your board that you're attending that meeting for the board for you to get paid for it.
So
Like if I just pop over to the Coastal Commission, I don't get $100 for that unless it's authorized by the board.
But as far as this goes, if they go to the healthcare district, the board is approving them to be the
Right.
liaison, and I think that's appropriate.
Right, I agree. So is everybody kind of clear on what those are? And I tend to agree, we don't need somebody specific for the tourism board, because if there's
No.
something going on, you would let us know.
I'll let you know, and we have no business, please.
Well, but we
the
do,
members of the
there's a
public
lot of commercial water that gets spent by the tourism board because they're
We don't-
bringing more heads in beds, which means more feet in showers.
We don't, we don't do that. And the members of the public. What do we bring,
If there's heads in beds, I hope they're taking showers.
the people should, the public should attend them more often. It's the second Tuesday of every month, I believe, and it's publicly posted.
Okay.
I'll get back to you next time on that.
That's great. What kind of clarity does staff need based on the discussion that we've had? And do we need to make an actual motion? I know, she's very good. I just want to make sure that we aren't leaving anything ambiguous that needs to be
I
clarified.
think updating this list and getting it back and circulating and make sure that we captured everything. And I'm
Okay.
going to make sure that I get a hold of Heidi at
That's
the
fair.
Healthcare District and send Director Pearson and Director Wharton, get put on the agendas because they're
Great.
designated liaison now. And, but I think we captured everything.
Vice President
With
Berger?
one caveat, the regulatory and other local, state, and federal agencies, I would like to join you as part of the executive committee to,
There's no
either
executive
attend-
committee, but
Okay.
yeah,
there you go,
yeah,
never mind,
yeah, President and Vice President
that'd be fine.
with the Vice President subordinate, right? Because when you're president, you would be. Well, I just don't want it to be confusing when we both show up to something and that's all. I'd gladly give you the microphone whenever you want. I just want to make sure it's not unclear to us. That's why you have rules, so when things get confusing. All right, 3D.
3D.
Yes, Madam President and board members,
Bring out your blouse.
3D, this is the last one.
What?
We're asking if we need a motion to approve the last agenda item.
You want to read through it now?
It's to,
I move that we circulate and get it back to us at the next meeting.
Okay.
We got it.
And in fact, we'll have it doing agenda prep, and if it's good, we'll just leave it. We don't have to, or do we have to make a motion then?
We'll put it on the consent agenda once it's been
Great.
circulated and approved.
Great.
okay.
Item 3D is discussion and consideration to appoint a delegate to vote on the behalf of the CCSD for the alternate LAFCO Special District Representative at the annual California Special District Association meeting. Consideration of nominating a board member as a candidate and selection of a candidate you support. As set forth in the attached memorandum from David Church, the Executive Officer of LAFCO, the CCSD is being asked to select a voting delegate to attend the annual Special District Conference Association in San Luis Obispo as part of their February 23rd, 2018 meeting, and elect an alternative. Staff has advised that no candidates have yet been nominated for consideration. If candidates are nominated prior to the board meeting, any statement of qualifications, resumes that are received will be distributed. In addition, if the board would like to nominate a candidate, it can do so. According to LAFCO, the board needs a consent of the directors that the board intends to nominate, as well as a board approval attachment of the nomination form. Nominations need to be submitted by noon of the 22nd of February. So if someone's nominated today, your qualifications or your statement of qualifications, we'll make sure that that's distributed to the other CSDs.
So this is to appoint to put forward a candidate for the position for alternate and LAFCO. Yes? Is that correct? Or to appoint somebody to vote for?
It's the prime goal is to appoint someone to go to the meeting to vote.
Okay.
You also have the option of picking one of you to nominate one of you
to be
formally.
a candidate for the
And if not,
position of alternate for
and
LAFCO.
then third, if there was candidates and we didn't get any information regarding them, to support one of those candidates. So just the first two.
So who's going to the CSDA dinner? Anybody? Vice President Berenger, did you want to?
When's the CSDA?
February 23rd.
Now, don't we have an option of just not doing anything? I mean, we don't have to send a representative at all.
You don't, but they've had trouble getting quorums over the last few years, so.
Right,
it
so
would be
having
helpful
some,
if we
but
sent
they have to have a
someone.
quorum on the 23rd, right?
They do, and they've had a lot of trouble.
No. I did talk to Merle Cliff about this at some length, and yes, they are having trouble getting people to do the, Merle was, by the way, on LAFCO.
He was on LAFCO, yeah.
And he.
I don't see we have any issues.
He felt that there aren't very many issues for us.
Right.
Mainly it's Paso and it's,
Right.
and in many other areas because of just the way the CCSD is structured. So I would have no nomination that I would make, and I'm not interested in going to the LAFCO meeting,
To the CSDA.
to the CSDA. I thought that was the one, no, okay, yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I believe, was that the meeting, I'm just curious, because I had just been elected to the board. Was that the annual gathering that was in Avila Beach last
Yes.
year? That
Yes.
Director
you went.
Beringer and
You
I
went.
were there, and General Manager Gruber was there. That's the same meeting, right?
Yes, but a new year.
Right. Pardon me? If That's fine with me. Yeah, that's fine with me. I'll tell you what, the thing that I think I appreciated about it was the opportunity, especially in the socializing hour, was to meet people that were representing other various districts in the community, in the county. That's where I gained the most, and then the people that I sat with, I learned something there as well.
So it would be we would want, if Director Farmer is going to go, we would say authorize him to vote for somebody that was a candidate for LAFCO alternate. Is that correct?
Right. You'd formally vote to designate him your voting.
Our voting rep. Okay.
I nominate Director Farmer to be the
Voting rep.
voting member from the CCSD to pick a member of LAFCO, to vote for a member of LAFCO.
I second.
Sure, and I just brought that up, but if anybody else would like to go instead of me, just go ahead and
Well, I
raise
think we
your
can
hand.
all go, but if you want, but
Yeah,
you'll be the
anybody can go.
designated representative who would be voting for the district. On
That's
the
cool.
district's
I think having somebody from Cambria, drive up in a '67 Volkswagen and a confirmed hippie, I think would be a good thing for Cambria. Thank
It'd
you.
be excellent.
Okay.
And
moved
other
and
people can
seconded.
go too.
Yes.
So-
And is there any further discussion? All right. Let's have a vote.
Director Barrender?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to go past 4 hours so that we can do closed session.
Oh, I move that we extend the meeting as long as necessary to complete closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Pearson. Motion by Director Berenger. We need to have a 4/5 vote. Let's call the roll, please. Thank you for coming, Steve. Director Pearson.
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
I would like to see us get done by 7 as I have obligations, but I can stretch those a little bit later, so aye. Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye, and I also need to be finished by 7. Thank you.
President
Aye.
Rice?
Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. We're going up to the office. Please meet up there.